Chair of the board and DA. Okay, do we have a long, sir, you do? Thank you. Steve?
Steve Johnson, College Springs Fire Department, Community Public Health.
All right, now El Paso County Sheriff's Office. I'm Amanda Grant, Deputy Chief Financial Officer for El Paso County and Fiscal District Council.
El Paso County Attorney for the North Paso Council.
Court Miller, Division Manager, Contracts and Procurement for El Paso County.
Angela Pedroni, the Director of Business Development at Cedar Springs Hospital. Christina Reynoso, Chief Operations Officer at Cedar Springs Hospital.
Thank you.
Allison John, one chance to grow up.
Hi,
I'm Kari Davis with Colorado Women's Health Foundation.
good to see you. I haven't seen you in a long time.
I know. Good. Shannon Conley, Open Hearts and Open Doors.
Stanley Conley, Director, Open Heart, Open Door.
Paul Weston, CEO of CT Analytics.
Thanks.
Great. Oh, I'm sorry. For some reason, you know what? It doesn't matter what my brain was saying. I'm the board charge of public conviction.
I'm sorry to throw you a curveball on that one.
Logan Hyder, El Paso County Public Health Data Analytics.
Michelle Beverly, El Paso County Public Health Acting Director.
Perfect. Christian Smith, I've got the fair share copy.
Ryan Morales, El Paso County Sheriff's Office.
Council Baker and the recovery resident.
Thank you. And then, ma'am?
Shauna Garcia, I'm a Suffolk County Sheriff's Office. Jerry Trigger,
Tim Monty, Keller County DHS, non-voting.
Lauren Nelson, El Paso County Commissioner.
And voting member.
And voting. Gary Gagner, El Paso County Commissioner. And voting.
So we have a quorum and we did roll call, so I'm gonna turn it over to James to pick up on the agenda.
Okay, first up on the agenda is the consent calendar. And the first item is the minutes approval.
I have one correction. You have Steve Johnson listed as proxy for Randy Royal and it should be me, Jamie McConnell.
So sometimes, but since there he's not, sometimes you're sitting there as a proxy or not a proxy.
Yes. But I'm there, I'm a proxy.
Right.
I'm here, she's the.
So you're saying that you want me through this.
I was present, not Steve Johnson.
I know for last minutes, just change the names.
Gotcha, okay, gotcha. All right, and I'll clarify that with the answer. Thank you.
Any other corrections, additions, subtractions? Minutes? With that one change, do we have a motion to approve? Move to approve the minutes as amended.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Next up, we have the financial report from Amanda Grant.
Mr. Chair, could I interject on this item?
Sure.
If it would please the chair, if a portion of item 11 could be called along with this. Item 11 is grant funding process review, specifically in order to direct Amanda to readjust the approved funding uses based on the discussion that we have the class on.
Yeah, let's go ahead and do that.
It's your standard monthly financial report. You'll see that the only changes on that were just additional interest accumulation over the last month. And then some more encumbrances for the contracts and grants that you all approved at the last meeting. So that leaves in the little yellow bucket about $4.2 million left in the county bank account, not including what's in the cost database. And then what Kenny alluded to is this larger spreadsheet that I printed out for you all. The top table, I did a lot of brain damage on this. There's a lot of hidden rows, but this top table represents how I have to report all of the expenditures in the cost database. So their primary uses are additional areas, which is, something you all have funded that doesn't fit one of their categories. And then prevention, recovery, treatment, admin cost, and leadership planning and coordination. Under each one of those, there's 30 to 40 different areas. And so what I do when you all approve something is I take what you've approved and then I find the best fit for it. So there's a couple of different ways you all can decide to rebalance your buckets. You can look at this bottom table, which are the statement of work categories that you all identified in the very beginning. And you guys allocated the funding throughout those. Or you can look at the cost areas and decide that you want to fund it according to how I report at the state. Because there's currently always a little bit of overlap, like some of statement and work 2 goes into recovery, but also into treatment. So I can never pull a report directly from cost that would mirror something that would fall into your statements of work. So there's always a little bit of manual finagling to get it all to balance. And so that would be a council decision. I put a couple of options. Obviously, there are several options you all could look at. Option A pulls some funding from the prevention space in the cost database and moves that down to treatment and recovery in order to make all of it balance. Option B is just reallocating your statement of work buckets. And again, that's taking some funding out of statement of work 1 and adding it to statement of work 4, which is where you guys have funded a lot more than we anticipated. Either way, I have to adjust the cost report at state. That's super easy amendment. I just go in, change a couple things, submit it, and it's good to go. But it's up to you all how you would like to see the funding moved around. And those are just a couple of numbers I threw out there. You guys can move the numbers however you see fit, but that would make it balance.
Any comments, questions?
So today we're gonna be looking at, or re-looking at a few things that would again change our numbers. And so do we want to do this twice or maybe once after we look at what we discussed today?
That's a great question. We can certainly do it again after you guys decide your final round of funding this afternoon. Do we have a 5 o'clock hard stop today? Yeah, so I would just want to keep that in mind, that if we run over on any of the agenda items and we don't get to this last, I'm not going to be able to sign any grant agreements or get any funding out until I have direction.
Do you have a preference on the 2 ways to do it?
What would make my life easier would be the first way, adjusting the buckets as they're reported in the cost database, just because that makes it a little bit more line to line. That's just an administrative ease for me. If you all want to continue to stick with the statement of works that you identified and fund them throughout there, and just understanding that I move them in the cost database, that's fine too. Additionally, when I submit this amendment, I could forego an amendment and submit a full 2-year plan to draw down additional funding that's available in the cost database. So that's I suppose a third option is that we could submit our new 2-year plan and pull additional funding down
From the state?
from the state money that's sitting in cost. Yeah.
Would that be within the scope of what was noticed today for us to make a decision?
I believe so for today's.
So for clarification for me,
Sure.
option A, essentially rebalances and trees us up with the state categories.
Correct.
The bottom where the original that we had before the state categories existed.
Yep.
That's, yeah, okay. We are clear. That's what I
Okay.
thought, but I just wanted to make sure we're clear.
So you're wanting us to give you guidance right now, ideally on option A or B.
Or at the end of this meeting, if we can get through everything else and we actually get to that. Otherwise, just understanding that I can't move forward with additional agreements until this is done.
I personally am fine with moving towards what the state is defining things, you know, I think they're fine descriptions, and if that makes your life easier, that's awesome.
I agree. and
Option A.
I'd rather do it now so that anyone who, they're not waiting to get money out the door, I think that would be expedient so that we don't run out of time today.
I would agree.
Is the consensus satisfactory?
I'm sorry.
Is the consensus satisfactory?
Oh, we need a vote.
My recommendation is for us.
Yeah, I would move that we adopt a rebalancing formula of option A as presented.
Second,
Any discussion?
A point of clarification, so are you suggesting as well that the new applicants should apply based on the same framework?
They don't have to. They can still apply under our previous statements of work, and I just look through them and figure out where to push them into the cost database. could look at changing our applications to align better with the cost approved uses. But
I
that's,
was gonna suggest that too, because I don't want to put you in a bad position to have to make decisions on that.
I think that's a great idea for conversation for our next round
Yeah.
of funding. So if we
Yeah,
can,
because we're looking at the four that are presenting today, pretty close to another 500,000 in asking.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't want to move money from one bucket without knowing where we stand with that bucket, with what these are asking for. And I don't know where these fall anyway, but.
Do you know, for the state categories where they have admin costs and the leadership planning and coordination, what do they contemplate fitting in those two buckets?
sure, leadership planning and coordination is like our facilitation services. Admin costs are those true admin costs, so the portion of my salary, Kenny's salary, staff salaries that are put towards the opioid funding.
And do those numbers make sense to you, especially for the admin costs?
Yes. Now, at the end of the year, I go in and I do the expenses, and so I true everything up. So this is a best guess. Then at the end of the year, when I submit that final expense report, it moves everything.
Any other discussion on the motion that's on the table?
The only other note I might make is
Yeah.
like A-2, would be that we could go with option A with the caveat that if you guys fund additional programs today that would need me to move these, that you would provide me the authority to move the money to make what you all vote on fit.
Friendly amendment?
That's 8.2.
Okay.
second,
Right. Yeah, let's state
Would
the.
like to restate it?
You gotta do it
Yeah,
first?
yeah, so the motion was to approve option A, and then I would amend that to include for any grant awards today to give Amanda the authority to appropriate and reallocate funds from the overall bucket into the state aligned buckets.
Does that satisfy you? Okay,
That work, Ken?
Yes, sir.
and you second?
yes,
Okay, any discussion on the amended motion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
It's the easiest thing we're gonna do all day long.
So next, we're going to have the consideration of the coroner's office funding request. You guys know. Either we go.
Okay,
We have a
great.
lot in the back.
Well, I just want to say thank you for giving me this opportunity to talk. You know, our office doesn't really fit into these programs that, these types of programs that this, that we have here. But I think this is a great opportunity for the community. As some of you may know, we, are the only coroner's office in the state to have our own in-house toxicology lab. I think that that provides us, I think we have better outcome. Being able to fine tune our testing to each case instead of just what, you know, large labs, allow. We also serve 21 other counties in the state of Colorado, so that accounts for a third of the state. So that allows us, and this is pun intended, I apologize, to keep a pulse on what's going on around the state. So, for example, you know, the first time that we saw xylazine was in Rio Grande County. The first time that we saw carfentanil, which was in August, was in Otero County. And so knowing what's going on around us, I think is really important for our community as well. Navigating through this rapidly changing drugs of abuse landscape, you know, as we've evolved from you know, prescription drugs, heroin, fentanyl. Now we're sort of entering into carfentanil or nitazenes, it seems. Also, at the same time, the adulterants are getting more complex. We're getting more adulterants, they're getting stronger. And so it's really a lot for us to navigate. At our office, we really try to tend to the needs of the community in addition to our role of determining cause and manner of death. So looking at, you know, those, you know, drugs like I mentioned, Also, folks will have questions about, THC, where it comes up in trials, or, now we have psilocybin in our community. And so we really try to stay on top of what's going on. That data we publish in an annual report, and a lot of people use that information for their decision making, for, for government, for nonprofits. That information really gets used by a lot of folks. And also, we had never released safety alerts before, and we've had a couple instances in the last few months. I've only been doing this since January, but I've already had 2 instances where I felt that it was important to let the community know about drugs that are have made their way to our community. So how did we do all this? We have an instrument from 2017. It's called a Randox, and we can screen all the samples that come to us. We can screen in this instrument, and it can screen for 21, it's a 21 assay screen. And so that can be either a specific drug or a family of drugs, a small panel of drugs. There's an instrument available. It's the same family of instrument, but it would allow for a 45 assay screen. And so we could do all of the drugs that we do now, plus add in carfentanil, which does not cross-react to fentanyl when you screen for fentanyl. And in August, we noted 3 times, in all the samples that we ran. We can add isotoniazines, the new up and emerging opioid, add that to it. We can add 6-MeO to the assay panel. 6-MeO is the chemical that we find that tells us when we find morphine that it's actually from heroin. Right now, that's a reflex test that we have to do, like more morphine. So, we can add multiple drugs to this. It would be a custom panel. And so we can change it to meet the needs of our community. There's also a few hallucinogens that we can't screen for right now that we can add to that, including psilocybin. So my ask is that the group would consider funding this instrument, as well as the yearly estimated cost of the kits that it would take, the consumables, those types of things. So the new analyzer is $150,000. There's other costs in there, like shipping and handling. Validation, we would have someone come in and test the kits and test the instrument so that when we are reporting this, these drugs and these numbers, that it's accurate. So it's an important part there, the $33,000. So the total initial cost is about $186,000. And then the kits, we had looked into this instrument before, and initially they said that the kits would be 10 times the cost that we were paying now, which is just crazy. Now it looks like it would be about 2.5 times what we're paying now. And so that comes out to, we believe, will be about $85,000 a year. We already have about half of that budgeted for 2026. And so we would just need half of that for 2026. But then my ask moving forward, 27 on would be for the $85,000. Any questions?
I'll go first. And by the way, we're one of the 31 counties who you help support, and we appreciate all of that help that you give not only to us, but throughout the state. So within this, this replaces something you already have, but better.
Yes.
Is there any part of this, and you mentioned, for example, the half that you already have budgeted for 2026 to cover, I think it's the kits, is that right?
Yes, that bottom number.
Yeah, that bottom number. Just in my mind, the balancing between what should be a county appropriation versus to this board. And so if you could talk to me a little bit about how this helps move the needle for all the organizations that, you know, this board works with and that you work with, that helps us move the needle on this, so that should we award it, we can justify that, yes, this is a proper use of these funds.
Yes, so I mean, we are in all of these folks who are dying, whether we believe that it's initially thought that they're dying of, you know, drug abuse or not. We test everyone who comes through. And, you know, in our experience, you know, you may not know initially that drugs have impacted that death. You may not know from the scene. Maybe the scene was clean. I'm sure the police can add in on this. But you know, maybe someone cleaned up the scene. Maybe the folks at the scene don't know that someone's using drugs. Maybe they do know and they're not telling the truth. And so we run toxicology on almost everybody that comes through this office. And you know, I can tell you, I mean, we're surprised sometimes. And so I think it's an important it's important community information to know how drugs and which drugs are impacting our community.
Thank you.
Can I make a motion to approve the request?
Yeah,
You can.
so
Motion and second, any discussion on motion?
I feel like maybe I should say something since I made the motion. I think this is important. I think one of the things that, like, we can't solve problems if we don't know what the problems are. So I think it's just a tool to help us all be aware of that in the community, and really grateful for the work that you guys do to help keep us all informed. Looking forward to you being at the BOCC next week. I think
Exactly.
yeah, to present that annual report. So this is great.
Any other discussion?
Just for my clarification, are you suggesting approving the initial startup cost and then what moving forward annually?
That's a very good question. I'm glad you asked that question. I am fine with, I suppose I wouldn't want to necessarily try to lock in this board. I don't think we really could, but try to lock in this board to, you know, an indefinite. So I think we have to come back on a yearly basis, but I'd say for at least the initial. Did we do that on the other one for 3? We basically said if there was funding available for UC Health. Yeah.
So I actually have a question that sort of goes along with that. The instrument that you have now
Yes,
has kits also.
yes.
So is that already covered in your budget? And then this would be replacing,
These are different kits.
yeah, they're
So-
different, but I mean, you wouldn't use the old instrument anymore, it'd be this one.
Correct.
And so the kit costs, are they roughly equivalent?
No, so these kits are about 2.5 times the cost per decedent of, it comes out, the kits are differently sized and,
Okay.
but it comes out to 2.5 times per decedent.
Okay.
Yes.
Actually, I'll let Councilman Blindweber go.
So I have 2 questions. One, you just suggested you wouldn't use the old one. And so have you considered, you know, can we find someone to buy that? Or would you be donating it to an area that might need one? I mean, what is the plans for that kid? Because it's a lot, you just told us, a lot of counties don't have this, right? So what's that plan? And then the second one is for us. I mean, it sounds like we'll probably fund this thing, but what bucket?
I would say our SOW2, community prevention, education and awareness, community awareness.
Okay.
I don't know which state one. I was trying to figure that out.
Same thing. I mean, you're saying that at the end of the day, you're able to put out public notices of drugs, what they are, where they're maybe even coming from, as a prevention tool for future deaths.
I hope.
Yeah, I would say, the coroner's office has traditionally done that, and I've seen, Dr. Osler Kidsley doing that since she's been in the position, so I would suspect that's gonna continue.
Yes, so we would definitely continue that. As far as your question, it's more than just having the instrument. In order to be able to have the lab, there's a lot of other requirements, including, you know, staff of certain levels and a position to oversee it and things like that. So, I'm not sure, and I don't know that I think the value of the old instrument is, at this point, is pretty limited. So I'm not entirely sure what that would be. I know we've had things we've tried to get rid of before, and sometimes it's hard to get rid of.
Always trying to be frugal, so.
Yeah, so Dr. Kinsley, you've already got some money, budgeted for that bottom number. So it seems that it would be appropriate, to, you know, to fund the request and then the balance between what you currently have budgeted and the higher amount.
That's great.
Is that accurate?
Yes.
Using your 2.5 times number, that roughly 34,000 currently budgeted for those, is that?
So it's something like that.
Very close,
right?
yeah.
Just using your numbers.
Yeah.
But if that was, that would leave a net of 54,000.
That sounds about right.
So if the motioner would accept a friendly amendment,
Yeah, that was my question, was the 85 the difference between that, or was that the whole amount?
That's the full
Okay,
amount.
so yeah, so, sorry, what was the number that you just did your math on?
54,000, is that my,
But
about right?
we're not approving for yearly, she's gonna come back, aren't we only approving the total initial cost of 185,000
Well,
right now?
so we have a small, an amount in her budget for 2026. So that's what's currently already appropriated in the budget that is moving through the process. And so what I would suggest is, if the will of the board is to vote to fund the initial startup cost plus the difference between what is already in the coroner's office budget and the $85,000 for the first year of test supply, that's for the 2026 year. And then Dr. Emily can come back for the 2027 year.
There's nothing worse than getting a new piece of equipment than not having any support it. Oh,
It's like the treadmill we all bought in January.
correct.
But the part of it, and Commissioner Geiger is right though, is that trying to commit the next board, the future board,
We really actually legally can't, I don't think.
no.
So we could say that we want to revisit it or encourage very strongly to do that, but I think really. It's just like with others, it's saying, well, we want to come back and revisit this, but ultimately we can't do it.
But we could do it, but we couldn't bind the board. We could say
Yes.
it, but it wouldn't. It doesn't mean anything.
You could do something similar to what we did with UC Health last month, was that you would approve the funding with an option to renew for up to 3 years, subject to funding availability and data or results. Then it means she doesn't have to put forth a whole new application or a whole new ask, and we don't have to do a whole new contract, it would just be a renewal.
And
What I
can
would,
I add something in that? I think that's a great idea, because when we talked to the company's Randox, when we talked to them and we put together, this like palette, this assay palette, or but when we put together the testing, the custom panel, they were like, wow, that's a really good panel. I bet we could sell that to other people. And so the more of them that they make, the cheaper it would be. And so, we'll know more about how much 2027 will cost closer to 2027 if they start selling this panel to other people too.
so that was gonna be my suggestion, is that because that basically 54,000 is based on estimate, in a year, we will actually have a better idea of what it will cost ongoing.
Yes.
So I think we should just fund based on the request, and then 54,000 for the kits. And then we come back next year and we'll have a more concrete number, probably. That'd be my suggestion.
So just to be clear, we're funding 185,790 plus 54,000. That's what we're voting right
And then
now.
Then we'll be back in a year and we can see what the actual kits are gonna probably be more closely costing.
That's great.
Happy to amend my motion to that.
Let me just second the.
Any discussion on the double amended motion? All in favor? Any opposed?
Thank you all very much.
Hey, next on the agenda, as you recall, last meeting, we had a wastewater treatment presentation. And Amanda Marshall had some comments on data that he had. So if the chair decided it was a good idea to present that data. So with that introduction, I'll introduce presentation of MDNI statistics by Commander Marshall.
Yeah, so I know that's a little bit smaller, but just basically, I just wanted to give the board a quick update on what we're seeing in the Colorado Springs area in regards to some of the cases that our Metro Vice Narcotics Intelligence units are seeing when it comes to drugs. So you can see that we've had about 348 cases with fentanyl seizures that we've investigated, which is 2% more than last year. Fentanyl arrests, department-wide, we're at 534 compared to 405. And then our BNI fentanyl arrests, we're at 47 compared to 30. When we talk about drug seizures for fentanyl, we've seized 71,784 pills versus 44,000 from last year, so that's a 62% increase. Fatal overdoses, you can see from 2021, just as an investigation for our detectives. We went from investigating 43 fatal overdoses to 56 in 2025. Some of those involve fentanyl. We're still waiting on some of the tox reports to confirm if those are fentanyl related or something else related, but we believe that those are fatal overdoses. So we're at 56 right now, which is a 10% increase. And then just what we're seeing as far as an increase in our seizures, again, 78% increase in fentanyl. And then really we're seeing about a 420% increase in meth. So that's pretty significant increase in meth that we've seen over the last really year.
And those, obviously, those 2025 numbers are year to date to what day?
September 30th.
So those numbers are gonna get quite a bit higher still.
Yeah, I can tell you in October, we seized over $420,000 on 2 search warrants and we recovered probably, I would say 100 fentanyl pills and some more meth and coke just in 2 operations in October.
Some of us know the difference between like that second category where you got department-wide fentanyl arrests and then divisional fentanyl arrests. Can you describe what?
Yeah, so the really difference is that the department-wide fentanyl arrests are what arrests that are also incorporated within our patrol officers. Division-wide are the offenders that we've arrested that we've had good cases on. Typically, our divisional fentanyl arrests are going to come from more cartel-based related investigations, for the most part.
And those are all city numbers only, or
Yes,
because it's BNI?
it's city, Fountain, Manitou, or I'm sorry, City, Fountain, and Monument, and Epso, in those areas that are just part of BNI.
Oh,
I think we got another one.
Can we just
Yeah, go ahead.
ask a clarifying question on that last slide? Sorry. So if I'm hearing you correctly, you're saying those divisional ones, those are more related to cartel activity. And so did you really have 0 in 21?
I honestly have no idea,
Okay.
to be honest.
That's like a 0 to seeing those large.
Yeah,
numbers.
yeah, I don't,
Okay.
I can't feel much to that for sure. I think it's fine.
I think in 2021, the cartel shut down because of
Oh,
service. Can we go to the next one?
Yeah, and so this is just some stats that we recovered from and this really just shows, I believe it's 2020 to 2024 in the state of Colorado, we had about reported 8,619 overdose deaths. And then if you go forward another slide. Actually, we'll get to that other slide, but just so this is our local DEA office. I've got a team that's assigned a sergeant and 5 detectives to our DEA office here in Colorado Springs. They're basically, that team also has detectives from Pueblo, El Paso County, just some other various agencies, not as far north as Douglas County. That's about where we stop. But that's just the September seizures that we found from from those teams. So you can see 8,497 grams of coke. Again, meth is really significant and fentanyl is really significant.
And DU at the end for fentanyl, what is the DU for fentanyl mean?
Uh, that's pills.
Is it dosage units?
Yes.
That was a pop quiz from Mike.
Yeah. The next one. Yeah, this just shows like, you can see in El Paso County from 2020 to 2024, it's reported that we've had 1,013 drug-related deaths. And then I believe Teller County's on there with 30 from that same time frame. That was it. I just wanted to present you all with some of the information, because there was just some last meeting, we heard some of the members say it would be helpful just to see some of the stats. So that was it.
Can you go back 2 slides? Oh, actually, that one. Yep, that one. So Mark, can you talk to us about why we're seeing, like meth go up so dramatically?
Yeah, I mean, it's cheaper and easier to make. Quite frankly, it's harder for some of the cartel members to get the stuff necessary to make the fentanyl. And so that's why you're also seeing a lot of other probably fentanyl related deaths, because they're mixing that with other things. And just quite frankly, it's just easier to grab the substances for meth. And so we're seeing a lot more meth being produced again.
Is there any evidence that you guys have that, the recent changes on border enforcement have also changed what those drugs potentially are versus what could be more easily made domestically versus made in other countries and then imported, through the southern border?
Yeah, the biggest thing that we've seen is that it's harder to get with the tariffs and stuff, it's harder to get the equipment necessary or the stuff for fentanyl, and it's easier to grab it from meth, and that's really what it came down to.
And it looks like we're also seeing increase in cocaine, which is pretty significant, from 238 grams to 8,497.
Yeah.
It's been a while since cocaine's been on the upswing, but starting to swing that way.
Yeah, we're starting to see a little bit more coke, and again, it all goes back to fentanyl's still popular, but at the same time, the previous historic drugs that were popular are becoming popular again, and it's really just because fentanyl is a little bit more difficult to get the substances needed to make it.
And so really, it reflects, at least in my mind, the idea that cartels are really business entities and they're just evolving to the pressures in the market.
Yes.
And getting the things out there that can satisfy users' needs and being flexible that way.
Yes.
It's a good business plan.
What about the, have we seen a change in the cost of a pill on the street for fentanyl?
I knew that question a month ago, but I don't remember what the answer was.
You know, generally, has it gone up?
I thought they said it got down slightly, but I can't remember exactly.
Thanks, Mark. Any other questions?
So the next agenda item is the RFQ wastewater treatment surveillance. Part 2 of what we talked about last month was set up an RFQ. I think we have Corey, the division manager, who's gonna come up here and speak to that. Come to the front for you.
Good afternoon, I'm Corey Miller, I'm the Division Manager, Contracts and Procurement for El Paso County. And based on the board's request to do an RFQ for wastewater treatment surveillance, we put that out to 3 vendors to submit. And I believe you have packets of the submissions from 2 vendors.
CDC and Biobot?
Yes. And it was done for 5 locations. Multiple samples, I think 260 samples for the whole year. For request for quotes, we always go with the lowest responsible. which means that they're qualified and they priced it within accurate price range. If they don't lowball it or they went too high.
So just for the council's information, the quote received from Biohawk Analytics exceeds the $150,000 benchmark that we could use for an RFQ. So if you did decide that you were more interested in that company as opposed to DEC, we would need to do a more formal solicitation process and could not award that today.
Right.
Should you be interested in going with CEC Analytics? They are under that $150,000 price point, and you could choose to open today based on the. I believe we have someone from CEC Analytics here today who can speak to if there was any change in active services between what they initially proposed and what is in their RFQ.
Yep. Sure.
I can answer any questions you might have. But I actually came here today with 4 samples from the card. That we've already started with. So my coroner's office. We see nitazines increasing, levomisol also increasing, cocaine's present, metabolite of cocaine. We have 13 fentanyls. We have 5 amphetamines. We have naloxone. And we have 17 opioids. We have
Those 17 opioids do not include the fentanyls.
Right.
So synthetic opioids don't fall into that.
Right. We do track benzodiazepines, we have 25. So yeah, it was pretty shocking. We'll continue that as we go. That is one of the cities that we are looking at. So.
What was your sampling like? When you were here previously, you talked about doing a Monday, a Wednesday, and Monday was always interesting. So when you just described to us what you were seeing, what was the scope?
So every Monday, starting on September 15th, and every Wednesday, starting September 17th.
So over a course of a couple of weeks.
Yeah, we're collecting it every single week. They're shipped out to Calgary and we report results.
So what you just read to us was everything you saw within how much time?
3 weeks
Okay.
so far. Yes.
Maybe an unanswerable question, but we'll find out. Obviously, there's a certain amount of opioids out there which are legally prescribed and properly used. How do you, how do we determine how much of what you're seeing may be illicit versus that which is appropriate, legal, and monitored?
That is a great question. We incorporate databases that include pharmacies that distribute and give out opioids. So we can track that data. We also look at signature patterns of the waste requires. So if we see an increase of accelerants or precursors to crystal meth production, we can have a good idea that that is probably associated with illegal substances. We can't definitively say it's illegal or not, but based off all the other compounds so confidence that that's the. It's also where you take your sample to. No. Okay. Oh, that's.
Yeah.
So, we just saw a police report. Obviously, when I think about that, I think about, well, how good are we doing police wise? It's really measuring a police's job and how lucky they got or how intentional they got to actually get that arrest and get that stuff. Where when I think about your method, it's like, it's standardized. I mean, it's like what people are doing every day. And so I feel like. Although I like seeing seeing trends and stuff like that with it, how we're fighting crime. I kind of see that it's different. You know what I'm saying? It is measuring different things to some extent. So I just I didn't know if anyone else kind of thought that.
Well, to your point, it is a different data set. What CSB or any law enforcement agency is gonna be able to report on is what they're actually able to seize.
All right.
I would say that characterizing it as lucky, probably not the best way to do it.
Well,
because
you
it
know,
takes a lot of investigation.
Sometimes it is that, but
Well, not for BNI, it's usually a result of a lot of investigation,
Sure.
undercover buys and all kinds of different things. But your main point is true, that the data sets are gonna be different.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm gonna go back to, because I think what's interesting is, well, as I was having a little sidebar here with our quarter. Cause you said. I don't think there's any magazines here, but you said that you found magazines. So we were kind of comparing those couple of things, but I think, again. What I am most interested in, I really appreciate the data that was brought because. We can see what's in our community and what is increasing from that enforcement perspective. What I am most interested in is being able to track over time, what is being metabolized in the community, because we could potentially track increases and decreases and say, we had this huge prevention push, we had this drug take back, we had these things. Do we see any difference in what is in the usage? And I don't know that there's any other tool or reliable indicator of true usage in our community that we could point to other than this. So I'm assuming, right, we may not be able to say exactly how much every person is taking, right? This is collective, but at the same point, and I would, kind of defer to our scientific community here too, but I would think you would be able to make some sort of deduction about usage, if you have huge numbers of increased, metabolized, we would assume that's not just 3 people doing a lot more. Potentially it could be, but right, you could really see some patterns and trends on whether the money that we are investing in prevention is making a difference. So it would be encouraging, for example, to see those things move downward and say, yes, we're doing some of the right things. And if they're not, hey, what are we just totally missing that we're not moving the needle at all on usage? That's maybe a little bit of the difference. It's not just so much what's in our community, but also how we can actually track our effectiveness.
We actually have mathematical formulations to actually calculate the level of consumption of like cocaine, for example. In wastewater, metabolite of cocaine is actually present about 64%. And so by determining the ratio, I'm actually able to estimate how much cocaine taken, similar to THC.
And does that work kind of the other way too, to say we could probably estimate roughly the number of users?
Yes. On a per population basis.
Yeah.
And if I may, Mr. Chair. Yeah, I agree with what Carrie is stating, and actually, it's interesting because actually we have 3 different potential data sets just in this meeting. We have
That's right.
the new data that we will be able to get out of the coroner's office in regards to deaths in the county, and it's not just, obviously a lot of the reports that they're going to be coming out with is it's not necessarily a drug overdose induced death, but it's what drugs were present in death, which is a greater subset of data. We have our enforcement data. This is general population. This is the whole shimoly, at least for where we're testing.
Yeah, that's the qualifier.
Right.
Is
And I
where
think
we're testing.
from our standpoint, and you probably heard it in the last meeting, was Turtle Creek's a whole different critter in our county than the rest of the county. And I know our law enforcement has an idea based upon their activities, what's going on there, but they might get their eyes opened a little bit after a couple of months of what's really going on. And I say that they may not get their eyes open. It may actually confirm, and either one, a confirmation, you know, or a difference in data are evaluated, wait, yes, we're on the right track, or hey, we got a bigger problem than we thought we had, or a lesser problem. I think all three of these are going to be will add value to the overall effort. And, you know, I think the overall cost is, I don't want to say it's negligible, it's a significant amount of money. But for the data that we'll get, 2 different collection points in Colorado Springs and 2 different in Teller County, I think we're gonna get a good picture for law enforcement, public health, everybody to be able to work on, whether it comes to education, enforcement, et cetera. So I like it.
Yeah, I agree with that.
So can we move forward with picking one of these now?
I was gonna ask about that, but, do we have someone here from BioBot? We've heard from one applicant, so if they're here, wanna give them their share, and I could totally nerd out on all the science behind this.
Me too.
But I personally don't have the expertise to know the difference between these 2 applications, to know which one we should go forward with. Like, are there people at this table that could look at these 2 applications and be like, yes, this one costs more, but it's worth it because X, Y, Z, or I don't want to put a corner on the spot, but she's the person that came to my mind.
Looking at the list of, you know, what's represented here, the fact that you're testing for nitazines, I really appreciate, and I don't see that on BioBot.
Testing for what?
Nitazines, like the new emerging opioid. So, that makes me lean towards CDC.
And it's significantly less expensive too.
That's why I wondered if the other people were here, they could explain why they were more expensive, like, was there a reason? And were they bringing something else?
Can I follow up on that? So not only, I'm assuming they're not here since no one has jumped up, but also I assume they knew that this was being discussed today and could have attended, but.
So is that true? They know.
Corey, were they provided?
No, there was, I mean, I wasn't even sure CC was coming either,
Okay.
so.
So they did not.
Yeah, there was no favoritism, like, hey, come speak.
No, I just meant, were
No.
they informed that this was gonna be on?
No,
Okay.
they were not.
He knew because we told them to come by.
Okay, so then I wasn't privy. So.
Burning up the air miles back and forth.
Yeah. Part of your
Right
team
over.
reviewed the proposals side by side. Were both companies offering basically the same product, or did you notice big discrepancies between you?
It was relatively similar, and there's also a price breakdown of like what they're charging for shipping, for sample section and all that too, to kind of see where the difference prices are.
And my question for CDC would be, when you were here last month and you presented the full costing was going to be slightly over $150,000 to include the 5 different testing sites. Your response to the RFQ, under that, are there fundamental changes to what you're offering, or did you adjust the price point?
We adjusted the price point based off of the type of analysis that we're able to do. So I can speak to my methods and other methods. Their methods were actually based off the methods that I created for Canada, or THC. So they use an LCMS MS machine that costs a lot of money to run. They require a lot of PhDs running the instrumentation, and it's very time consuming. So that is why there's a cost factor. We use a paper spray mass spec. So we're able to do 240 samples in 8 hours, 408 in 16 hours. And so that price point is much lower, lower. We also presented the same cost as the original proposal back in Q1 of this year. During that time, we've actually optimized the procedures, we've brought down the cost similar to the kits. Over time, your price just decreases just because of volume. We want to reflect that. We also want to provide the opportunities so that if there were in future locations that we wanted to do more granular testing cases, we had that flexibility as well.
Thank you.
The other addition that I might add The difference between BioBot and CECs is the fact that we do non-targeted analysis. They don't. So they have specific targets that we look for, and so do we. But we also acknowledge that there's a lot of other substances being used. Pharmaceuticals, gabapentins, benzodiazepines, so we have to take into account that. So we do both targeted and non-targeted. I think that's a very big difference.
Any other questions?
The comment that, again, I get really excited about the science side of this, but I want it to be actionable. And so I think that's something that this committee is still going to need to figure out and work through. When we're getting this data, how are we going to use it and act on it? And is it marketing campaigns, like you notify us that whatever that was she said is in our system, and so now we have to go out and do like commercials or posters or, you know, like, so that we can actually start trying to take action and then monitor for if we're seeing the trend. And that's the piece that I still haven't quite wrapped my head around what that's gonna look like. And I think, I mean, like, maybe we put out a pitch or to like the opioid nonprofit sector saying, can you all come with something now to help us use this data? Like, what would you propose that we use this data now to be able to act? Like, they're already in this industry and helping support addicts, and so how can we take this data and use it? Want to make it actionable.
I think, you know, in parallel with that, I think there's a strategic component too. We haven't talked to Springs Utilities on what their thoughts would be, where we might want to do these. And then I don't think we've talked about schools, you know, that would be, but then we're pinpointing one school or, you know, a couple that are together. And then we're also, I think we've even talked about the rescue mission, know what's in our homeless population. So I think we're gonna have to set some priorities on what do we want to measure? So, yeah.
Yeah, I believe, if I recall, main wastewater treatment plant in Fulton Park, main wastewater treatment plant, Cripple Creek, and then there were two collector plants for Colorado Springs, and then it was either, and I'm actually, I'm looking here, I got a little confused because it said Monument Fountain, but I remember just talking north, south, and Fountain, but can you speak to that specifically about where those collection points will? I think all of them were gonna be major collection points and not targeted, down to the school level. We did talk about that, but, if you would.
Yeah, so actually, what is that figure number actually? This is that one, yeah. Figure one, like that. Excellent. Thank you. So Colorado Springs has two wastewater treatment plants, the northern sewer shed and the southern food shed. Yeah, Phillips and Vegas. Yeah, so we were proposing to do southern watershed just because it reflected the majority of the population of Colorado Springs. And I believe Fountain and Monument were next, the wastewater treatment plant, so we also collect from. So we have 3 locations in El Paso County and 2 in Towson.
That answer your question, Dan?
Yeah. Couldn't quite remember because we were getting into some details or with schools, rescue mission and stuff like that. Not sure where we landed on that. Couldn't remember.
The health department worked with us and took our data over the last several years and did a heat map of El Paso County representing overdose deaths in the county over time. And if this group wanted to see those maps, I'd be happy to share them.
We were talking about a lot of different things we talked about a lot of different potential uses for this. I feel like I remember kind of coming to the conclusion at the end that if we wanted to do this, a good way to start is with that general population data.
Yeah.
start working with it, and then we might come up with a lot of other very specific and useful things. But starting with the general population, it is a good way to start looking at the data, understanding what's there, and then, getting, again, looking at it from the big picture of the things that we're doing, but then I think continuing to look and say, are there other very specific ways, down the road? But I would personally be in support of doing it from the broader perspective first. I know, and Deanne's here today, but I know, speaking with Deanne about some of the thoughts that they had from the public health standpoint afterwards as well, is that there are, I think, a lot of valuable insights that we can gather, and I think this is one of those things that we can potentially see, again, like those big things. Here's where the campaign that we're doing, is it making a difference? We can see those things from now, but as we look at the data, we may find more and more uses for it. And I think that's going to evolve over time as we all become more familiar with it. I also think it's a possibility that maybe we want to do a subcommittee or something on this to help kind of write some of those like very specific things that we've talked about a little bit, but putting them in writing is like, what we're going to do is we're going to evaluate the RFP that we've put out on this specific thing, and we're going to look at the data previous to and come back. Maybe that subcommittee can kind of help us make some sense of that. I'm volunteering Emily because she doesn't have enough to do, but also because she, I think, would be really insightful in this area. But I think something like that, when we only meet once a month and we have these huge conversations, I think it's really hard to get to that. But if we had a group that had some time to focus in on that specifically and then bring us their recommendations and their thoughts, that might be valuable.
Amanda, I'm sorry, Laura, go ahead.
So I was just gonna say, I'd be willing to help you on that subcommittee for names to throw in the hat.
And Amanda, you had stated, and forgive me, because I don't know your guys' appropriation guidelines, but you said under 150,000 is cleaner.
Correct, you could award that off of an RFQ over $150,000. We would need to do a formal solicitation like an RFP.
We do either that or it can die for lack of.
That we award CEC Analytics this contract.
I'll second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That's what's time.
Okay, but on next up, on the agenda is enemy recovery. I said enemy recovery. Alright, so, first we're gonna go with enemy recovery. On the side. Let's see, alright, as you recall, we asked enemy recovery to come back and present to us at our last meeting. So we have some slides to present.
Hi guys, again, this is just the same slide that we had from before, and I just wanted to kind of put that information up again. I did this time because last time I talked way too long, so I just gonna read what I wrote so that I pass along the ideas that I want to pass on without taking way more than I'm supposed to. My name is Chelsea. I'm the owner and operator of Enemy Recovery Residence. We're a sober living organization in Colorado Springs. We opened our women's house on the south end of the city on March 1st, 2025. Our house is CAR certified for up to 15 women. We currently have 8 women living there. Our men's house is set to open by the end of October. It will comfortably hold 12 men. We're coming before the council to request funding to provide scholarships for the first 60 to 90 days for men and women who need sober living. We're also asking the council for assistance with the initial costs associated with opening up our men's house. We know that the data shows that staying in sober living for 6 or more months increases sobriety rates to 70 to 80%. 12 or more months raises that number up to 85% and higher. These outcomes are further improved when services like employment assistance and life skills training, as well as relapse prevention,
and other recovery-based groups are offered. Excuse me. At Enemy, these extras aren't only offered, they're required. We require our residents to work. We require them to attend in-person recovery program meetings once a week. We require residents to attend life skills and other recovery-based groups in our house. We're committed to setting them up for success. You'll see that we requested a small amount of funding to help with the expenses for the men's house. These are the real-time costs of getting the house up and running, ready for our new residents to move in. This includes the furnishings and other household supplies needed for day-to-day living, as well as the inspections and deposits that are required. Our request for scholarship funding is the biggest ask. We based our numbers on the ideal, and you could go to the next slide, please. Our numbers are based on the ideal 6-month stay in sober living. We're planning to average 12 residents at the men's house and 12 at the women's house. If we base our numbers on the 6-month stay, that allows for 24 men and 24 women to pass through our houses each year. We'd like to be able to scholarship residents for the first 60 days of their stay. This allows individuals to stabilize, build their new routines, and focus on their recovery without being in survival mode. After remaining sober, securing steady employment is our #1 priority at our houses. Our policy states that residents will immediately upon entry begin their job search process and will be working within 14 days of arriving. We've partnered with several local employers who know our mission and have committed to helping our residents get to work as quickly as possible. We also provide residents with many employment resources in our computer labs that are set up in each house. We work with outside staffing agencies, as well as organizations who specialize in job placement for those in recovery and or justice involved. This model allows our program to be sustainable. Our day-to-day business operations are covered by the monthly fees that residents pay. We don't require funding to run business. The funding would allow us to help more people and to give those who are otherwise unable to afford sober living a chance. I just had a client yesterday that I spoke with from inpatient rehab here in town, and we got her all ready to go. And when the topic came up of how you're going to afford to pay, you know, when we first opened, I was covering the first month for people because we had some funding for that. But now we don't. So I'm like telling her, we can cover your first week, get you kind of settled into the house, and then we'll get you like hooked up with some different people to get to work right away. And she was on board, ready to work, super excited, and supposed to come yesterday morning at 9. And when I talked with her patient navigator, she said she backed out because she doesn't feel like she'll be able to afford it. So her, even though, you know, we're talking about getting a job, but this lady was just super committed to like, I do what I say I'm gonna do. I stand behind what I say. And so she knew that she wasn't gonna be able to afford it after that first week. So 10 o'clock came around yesterday morning and I messaged the navigator and like, she's not here yet. And she just decided she's gonna go stay with family and friends for a while. But that's not how that usually works. So I feel like we kind of all know how that will end up. And so I hate it. It literally hurts my heart to have to turn people away. But that's a spot right. So that's the end of my spiel. You guys have questions for me?
That will open up questions.
Trying to, thank you, by the way. This is your 3rd time here, so I appreciate, you know, you coming back, continuing to ask questions and to refine your ask. And then, sure. First house you set up, if I remember correctly, you said was about, was set up for 12 and.
It's set up for 15.
For 15,
No,
you said you
because-
didn't think you'd be able to handle more than.
I feel like 12 is the top that.
12. And I realize that your organization is young, so you don't have you know, a track record to look back and say that, well, the average person, the median person, you know, is here for 6 months, is here for 12 months, is here for, because obviously you're a stepping stone with the first step being stability.
Right.
And then productivity. Obviously, then they get, during that time, they get hopefully the help that they need, and at some point they transition to a more independent situation. But where I'm struggling a little bit is overall with the math of it all. In that, was in that first meeting that we had when we talked, I know some of the discussion around the board was that you're looking for that first kind of 90 days, just as you were talking, they get somebody off the ground, help them get established so that they can have that 90 days to find a job where they can become, at that point, hopefully immediately self-sufficient under, a $700 a month cost, which is obviously much lower than, than what somebody would do independently on their own. So if you got 12 people, and you got 3 months, at $700 a month, that's $2,100. So 2,100 times 12, rough math into there. I'm trying to figure out how we get to, $67,000, because I certainly like the idea of, let's help people get started in this. But when you've got the one house, you're just getting ready to do the men's house, and similar, about the same size, as how do we get to 48 residents? How do we, is it because you're expecting them to transition out within 6 months, and now we have another, what does that cycle look like for us to get to 48 where we're, making sure that the funds go exactly what, they're supposed to be going towards.
I think the confusing part is we're wanting to scholarship people, we're wanting to help them with the first 2 or 3 months they're in the house. We don't want them to move out of the house at 90 days. We want them to still be in the house and taking advantage of all the resources and the support that we're able to offer them. So that's where the average we want to get to is 6 months. If people can stay long, we have one girl who's been at our house since we opened. And I actually do have a little bit of data, even though we've only been open 7 months. If you take out the people who didn't stay past 14 days, then our average stay right now is 82 days. So that's a very little bit of data. Yeah, but we do have people that come and like, oh no, I'm not having a 7 o'clock curfew. This place won't work for me. And then they leave in a couple days. Or, oh, my boyfriend can't come visit me. This won't work for me yet. But if we just look at the people who made it past that first couple of weeks, our average stay right now is 82 days. So, but
Remind me again how long your women's hall has been open?
March 1st.
March 1st this year, okay. And what does success for your residents look like? What defines that?
Well, for us, like I can think of the people that have moved on and that we would consider successful discharges are obviously still sober. The one that I can think of was the DHS was returning her son to her, and so she had to move out because we don't allow children to reside with moms at our house. So she had to move out. And she's right now, I think she just celebrated a couple days ago, her 120 days sober. But she hasn't seen her son since he was born, and he's 3.5. So, and then we had another girl who's actually pregnant and has been sober. I think she was at 65 days when I did all these numbers. But, we don't allow kids to stay. She's gonna have a baby in a month and a half. So she's trying to get moved into a mom and me house that will allow her to have the baby there with her. One girl that just moved out, she was there since we opened, was, following all the rules from probation and DHS, and was told that she can get unsupervised visits with her son, and she wanted to be able to spend, we only allow one overnight a week for kids to come spend the night at the house with their mom. And she wanted to be able to spend more overnights with them. So she moved in with her in-laws. So she could save up some money and get some money from her son. So.
Thank you.
So I'm doing the math over here too. I take that 111,800 divided by 48, we're looking at around $2,300 per person.
That's actually, so this is just the scholarships. This is that other, like to help with the men's house. So this is the number that this would fund 48 people for 90 days. And this number would fund 48 people for 60 days. Does that make sense?
Yeah, my numbers are just a little off, but, I remember when you presented initially talking, one of the things that appealed to me is that you do require them to start paying their way. So where does that play into these numbers? Because you want to be able to provide 90 days, but they may not need
They
it.
may not, and hopefully
Right.
they don't need 90 days. I feel like just from what we've done so far, I feel like most of the women are working probably at 22 days. So about 3 weeks in, but then it's, you gotta get your first paycheck and then you gotta pay for your cell phone. So after probably 6 weeks, they're ready to at least pay me because I'd rather have them pay $700 on the first, but for those first couple months, it's usually I can pay 175 a week. You know, so then I take weekly payments for a couple weeks and then we move to, I can pay 350 now. And 2 girls this last week, like skipping up to me with their $700 in one chunk, you know, and once they get a taste of that feeling of being able to do it themselves, it's pretty powerful, you know, so.
So are your numbers here conservative? Like, do you anticipate being able to stretch that 100,000 to more people potentially?
I do.
Based on your experience since March?
Yes, so ideally, we would like them to be with us for at least 6 months. That's where the 48 residents between the two houses came from, ideally. But right now, I don't have a whole lot of data, and I have, out of the 8 women that are in the house right now, I have 2 that have been with us for 6 months. But we've only been open 7 months. So I anticipate, I have 4 of the other girls that are in there right now have been with us at least 4 months. So I just based on what we've seen so far, if they're gonna leave, it's usually within that first 4 or 6 weeks. So,
And is it that they're not succeeding?
sometimes it is, like, we're really strict at our house. We have a 7 o'clock curfew for the first 30 days. People don't like that. We don't allow significant others to come to the house ever at all for any reason. People think that they can handle that and then sometimes get into the house and it just doesn't work. Or just different rules that are all very well laid out before they come in, you know, and they sign for, but it seems a lot more attractive than being in jail, and then being homeless. So they come in and they try it and they think they might be able to do it, and then they're just some of those that, you know, like to follow, and we're just super strict.
How many people can you say have come through and have maintained sobriety? Like, I'm looking for that help. How many people?
I've only had to make 3 people leave based on drug issues. We don't automatically make someone leave if they test positive on a random way. We follow a process and they go to detox and then we sit down. So I've only had to make 3 people leave based on drug offenses. I did have somebody who brought drugs into the house. And then I think the other 4 that I had to have leave were rule things. Where constantly not getting home by curfew or constantly not doing chores and or, you know, somebody stole something of somebody else's and then kind of.
So how many people since March would you say are success?
Or either still in the house or having been discharged successfully, 17. So I do have, because like one person that I was thinking of, she was only at our house for 37 days, but she did all of the things that DHS and probation required of her. And so she was, probation said she didn't have to be in sober living anymore. So she was able to move into her own roommate situation. So she's still sober, I mean, as far as I know, but she was obviously sober at the time. and moving on to independent living, not going backwards. So I feel like, and not to toot my own horn, but kind of. I just keep hearing, like I have DHS caseworkers that, because I usually call into their staffings and their family meetings that they do every month. And we keep getting lots and lots of kudos from those guys that are saying, I don't know what's going on over there, but whatever you did with whoever, we've been working with her for 3 years and haven't had any success. And I've heard that 2 separate times in like the last week and out of 8 girls, I feel like it's pretty good.
So my apologies if you already mentioned this, but you said you can comfortably house 12 at a time, right? But they're always turning over. So since March, how many total individual women have come through the house? Because I think that speaks to your grant.
Yes. So I don't have that number, but I know that I did figure out our average length of stay was 82 days. So, that's almost 3 months. So I apologize. I don't have that.
Oh, that's okay. I just, if you've had 17 successful, you know, I mean, that tells me, you know.
And it's super small numbers right now, but
Yeah.
We're working on it. And I feel really good about the changes that are happening, you know,
Yeah,
and
I think-
seeing the girls.
Yeah, I can see why the scholarship piece is important, especially now starting out, because you're gonna have turnover.
Yeah.
You know, and some of them will just use the 2 months.
And
of scholarship
I probably have 9 women that are just waiting. Either for funding from some other, because we just probation and the judicial contract was just put out the end of last month. And we put our bid in and we're gonna be on that list, but we weren't before because we're brand new. So once that funding becomes available to us, that will be huge. But I'm talking to women that are in CJC, doing visits with people, our applications in there, and so we're able to kind of get engaged with people, but if they can't afford it, and most of the time they can't. And stuff. That's why we only have 8 people right now.
Any final questions?
Yeah, one final question is just on oversight of what you're doing. Obviously, you're an LLC. We talked about that last time. You know, a lot of people that do this, they're nonprofits. They might have a board and a director that answers to a board. What oversight is there over the conditions at the home? How people are treated at the home, and you know, just because you're and it's not a criticism, it's you guys are kind of operating out here. This is a new idea, and I like innovation, I like new ideas. And I like, you know, the cost point that you're in here. I can see how people could get stable at this cost, and should they remain sober, become more productive. So what's the backstop, I guess is what I'm asking, because you're kind of flying, you're building a plane while you're flying it, and you know, what's the backstop to assure safety, livability?
Yeah.
All, you know, those things there.
We're car certified and we have to get recertified every year. And they are able to come and do inspections whenever they want. Their guidebook for best practices is 300 pages long. And I just, in my previous life, I used to have this binder that kind of managed the contracts that I was over. And that's what I have with the car guidebook. So everybody that works with me, everybody that comes to stay at our house, I'm the biggest rule follower we'll ever make. And so I have our guidelines that we go by. And I would bet a paycheck there is not a sober living house in this state that is closer to following all of the rules and way above that than we are. And also, we have DHS caseworkers that come drop in and visit all the time. We have probation officers and parole officers that come do drop-in visits and stuff like that too. So there's definitely a little bit of, you know, we're having to show people that we're doing.
People are coming in.
And also, I do have a nonprofit that I started, and it actually came from somebody who did a different presentation here. And I'm working with him to kind of move from being an LLC into a nonprofit. So hopefully by the end of next year, that'll all be situated.
One final question, Amanda, go
I
ahead.
just have a couple quick clarifying questions. So when you give a resident a scholarship, are you telling them a 30 days at a time?
Yes.
Okay, so it might help the council make more sense of the math if instead of looking at 48 residents or 60 or 90 days, if you were interested in funding X number of 30-day scholarships, and that 30-day scholarship could be awarded to the same client up to 3 times if that's your business practice, right, up to 90 days. But instead of trying to do the math between residents and days,
Maybe how many months worth of scholarships?
how many 30-day scholarships? And then, so if the council chose to fund you at a lower amount for scholarships, would that be something that your organization is scalable at? Or do you need the full $100,800 in scholarships for this project?
No, we, and like I said, that's for 90 days for 48 people. So, no, I mean, I would be thankful for anything, because I know that as we get more, the first few months at the Women's House, we just didn't make any money because really nobody could pay. And there was no funding left. So, now the money is coming in because most everybody is working. And the Men's House, a lot of the men that are moving into that house already have jobs.
Right.
So, I'm not worried about sustaining what we get going. It's just being able to get a couple months of, funding.
So if it's something you all are interested in funding, you could look at like, oh, if we wanted to fund 50 30-day scholarships, that would be $35,000 or something along those lines. You could do additional math to figure out how many 1 month scholarships rather than per person. Okay, thank you.
So with that,
How does that work? Like if, then if she's successful, then she can come back and reapply, or what's that process?
You mean if she runs out of scholarships to award?
Yeah, like if we're like, hey, well, we want to see where this goes. Cause anybody that's applying now can come back in the future, right?
Yeah.
I'm still new learning the process, that it's more of a procedure question, not specific to her.
Yes, she can come back and apply in any of the next future funding cycles and bring back that data. That's how she used the money.
Thank you.
so with that, we're a little behind schedule, but any further comments or any decisions on this?
I mean, I guess I'll put it out there, is there interest in with funding maybe at a lower amount? And because it's based on 100,800, that's 144 months. 700 a month is where I'm getting from, so that's a lot of months. I think we could maybe like take it down if this is something that the council is interested in supporting.
Yeah, I agree. It's a newer program, and I'm optimistic about what the results could be, but I agree, I think, especially with it being a new program, that we could fund some scholarships and have her come back and report on how things are going. And, so I was actually just trying to do some quick math here to, because they can do 12 at a time. And so even if we did 24 60-day scholarships, sorry, make me do math in public.
So I think we're like 30-day scholarships, right? That's kind of what you were.
Yeah, but if you did 24 60 days, so that would be
That'd be
48
30
months, that's $33,600.
That number. So, and the reason I was kind of looking at that is there's some others in the room that were there, but we were just at Step Springs last week and kind of hearing about what their program is. And I think they say that they try to get people to work within 45 days. So maybe kind of splitting the difference there, but saying 60 days would get them kind of beyond that. That's in line with other programs that have high success rates. So maybe he said if we did 24 scholarships times the 60 days at the 3,600 that Amanda did for me, so I didn't mess that up in public. I appreciate that. I think I'd be comfortable with that and then have her come back and report on just how those things are going.
Is that a motion?
I would move that we approve this request for $33,000, $33,600.
I would second that.
So you're looking at just the scholarship, so we're not gonna look at the men's piece. And I bring that up because Steph is gonna open next month, and they're gonna have 50 beds. So it's trying to be frugal with our money, right? But they are men's only.
Yeah, I think that's one of those pieces, and I agree, because that is a proven program that's coming to our community. I think that, yes, because there is not an equivalent as of yet, and I think I mentioned this, I hope that this organization will go and talk and tour Springs, Step Springs, and learn from the proven model, because I think there are some similarities. But we also heard that they need sober living, and they need transition from out of that house as well. And so perhaps there's, an ability to bring people in that are already through that program, but are ready for that next step as well. So I think that's kind of what I was thinking.
So but to get back to your motion.
I'm fine with
it's
just
only the scholarship.
I'm okay with just the scholarship. It seems to me where some of the furnishings and other things, I would prefer to just do it based on the scholarships at this point. But if someone felt very passionately about adding those other items, open for discussion.
I guess I'm suggesting that I'm not as passionate about that. I'm more passionate about the women's
Oh, I
portion.
see what you're saying.
Yeah, because the men's portion, I kind of feel like we've got something that's gonna be filling the pipeline for 50 beds.
For only 50, right?
That's only for
There's
50.
plenty of people out there that can,
I'm not disputing that, so, yeah.
so I don't know that I'm just saying, I don't know that we should look at it that way, but Step Springs is gonna satisfy all the need we have in the men's community. I think that there's plenty of customers out there that we can actually support more than that.
And this might be like the next thing after Step Springs, because they did mention
Right.
they need sober living homes in our community. And that's something that there is a gap, and so I don't know.
Yeah,
It's
that's
not
what I
our-
meant by
it's
like,
not our
there could be
place.
also a second step.
Well, then it gets back to my question, and are we gonna include the men's piece?
I would like to see something, actually, I'm impressed by it, I think it's, good to see that this is something that's gonna be starting up and, similar to Step, I mean, that's what I'm thinking of, it's kind of the same kind of a program. I don't know why we wouldn't include some of the other things too, there's plenty of need out there, so.
Would you accept a friendly amendment to add the
one.
additional three, the furnishings, the deposits and utilities
So
for,
essentially $11,000 in addition to
yeah, so
the.
34 or 5.
44.6.
34.6.
That's your favorite.
Is that mapping?
No. If you'd like more than 48 30-day scholarships plus fund the other $11,000 and ask for the $44,600.
Not,
44,000.
are we saying the 48 though, or I said
30 days, because she said she
Oh,
gets the
same.
scholarships out in 30-day increments.
it's not a
so-
yes.
That's right, that was
Okay.
my point with her.
Yes,
saying
yeah,
that.
yes, check, I'm with you. Majored in English, guys, majored in English.
Yeah, 44
I'm-
is the total.
Yes, I'm happy with that.
You're okay with that, then second concurs.
Second.
2 seconds there.
I thought you were saying you needed a second,
No.
sorry.
Any further discussion on the motion, which is to fund 48 30-day scholarships, right? Plus the additional $11,000. Any discussion on that? Okay, let's go ahead and vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
Thank you for your math back.
Next up is Surrender Your Company Connection. We have Sherry Trahern here. Your Hall's Council had previously funded this applicant, and she's coming back for further discussion about that funding.
So I want to start by saying that we are so very grateful for the previous funding that we received. And I'm also grateful for the opportunity to come back and speak to our indirect costs. And I don't need to read that to you, but I want to talk about indirect costs and what it means for SRC and its program. because it is very specific to the programs. And our 990 would prove that out. The 18% truly is program associated costs, but I just wanted to give you some examples of those indirect costs that SRC has. We provide professional development in excess of the required 15 hours of certification for all of our peer coaches, because this allows them to be promoted in leadership positions and potentially move up and onward. But we believe very much in professional and personal development with our staff. We have RDP, which is our recovery data platform. And that, of course, has a cost to it. That's where we provide all of our data. We have to provide the internet. We have to have Zoom because a lot of our coaching sessions do get provided over Zoom. We have a data analyst who is scrubbing all of this data so that we can appropriately report on all of our grants. And then we own a fabulous building, but we do have a support group room that's we allow use of to any organization that wants to have a support group in addition to our internal support groups. And then we also have a coaching coaches program that we open up to all peer coaches in the community. And so they do a lot of work with ethical considerations and work in the peer coaching space, and we open that opportunity up, but those also come at a cost. As we look at the other costs associated with our building, as it starts getting colder, we start having a lot more people coming in our doors and looking for us to provide resources, whether it's peer coaching or navigating them to the other sources. That also comes at a cost. And I told James I would be brief, so.
So I never did that for.
Yeah, I would just a reminder, so we had awarded, and then this was for her to come back and use us to fund indirect costs.
Correct, the awarded sans the indirect costs, and then there's a conversation about how some applicants were funded indirect costs. So,
Sorry, I couldn't hear you.
Oh, sorry, we're talking about how she was funded sans indirect costs and how some applicants are funded with indirect costs. So she's given an opportunity statewide to like indirect costs to be added back into the fund.
Correct, her initial ask was for 469,736.12. The council funded 408, 466.19 in direct costs, and removed the 61,269.93 in indirect that she had requested. There are not all organizations have requested indirect, but other organizations have requested indirect and been afforded them.
Can you tell us how much
How much you've awarded in total for indirect?
in indirect costs?
About $250,000. That's really rough with math, but it's close.
So what's the dollar amount?
61,269.93.
So obviously the 270 is the total from other organizations. What is the highest number, since this is 60, are there others that are about that same number?
Yes.
Yeah, like can you just name the individual?
Yeah, absolutely. The Phoenix that was awarded last meeting was a total $500,000 ask for $65,000 in indirect costs, so very comparable. As well as Homework Pikes Peak, who was awarded $581,000, of which $75,825 was indirect costs. So those are the two that are most comparable to this.
So it was me, right? I mean, I was the one who brought it up. Overall, I don't like it. I don't like indirect costs because I like the idea that these monies are going as much as possible to the specific, service that is pitched. And that the organization, through use of other funds, should be able to stand up and then utilize these funds. That being said, we've been inconsistent. And because of that inconsistency, I would actually just make a motion that we award the additional monies for operational expenses, but then also, I think just as a policy of this group, as we look forward, is to establish a policy as to whether indirect costs should or should not be included as part of a grant request, so that we can be consistent about how we do it. And that's not a should we or should we not, I'm just saying it needs to be part of policy.
So you're making.
I did make a motion to add the additional funding, which was deleted in the amount that Amanda, stated just now, to grant the indirect costs, so we're consistent with what we've granted to other providers.
I would second that. I would just add to, maybe there's a way that we come up with a formula, some percentage can go towards indirect costs. I think that's a good way to do it. That's typically the way I look at, charities that are operating, how much is going actually to the service and how much is going to the overhead costs or indirect costs. So maybe there's a formula with, yeah, exactly. So, yeah, so that's, motion and second. Any discussion on the motion?
I was just gonna add. Most admin costs is 5 to 10%. And usually not above
Not about what?
10%.
Okay.
That's what I see as 10%.
So other grant funders are up to the 15 to 20% now, overall. I would also want to say that as I am looking at this organization, again, being in my first year and a half, looking at what it truly costs us to provide the service, is something that I'm paying close attention to because I do a degree in accounting. And so being able to say these costs are truly associated with providing the program as opposed to coming to you with individual salaries and benefits, it makes more sense to say, what does the total program cost for specific results is what I'm looking for in the future from my organization.
Okay, any other discussion on the motion? All right. We're in vote, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right,
Thank you so much.
Sure. Okay, so next, we are at section 9, the council discussion of non-awarded applicants. And this is an opportunity to pull items out of this group, such as NME last month was pulled from this section, and they can be called back to present at a future meeting. They also have the opportunity to apply for the next round of funding as well. And I will say that City of Colorado Springs will be presenting at the next meeting, so no need to mention them. But out of that group A through M, was there any in this group? And I should also add that in your binder, the first section is are these kind of summaries of these applications in the order that they're listed there. So you take a quick perusal or decide if there's anyone that you want to have further dialogue with this council, or should they all at this point be asked to present and to apply for the next round of funding?
where did you say in the binder?
I'm sorry, right at the front.
The very beginning, okay.
Yeah, the very beginning. Or the tabs. In addition to the summaries, I have a slide with each of every one of these meetings and something you're interested in talking about for their ones. I've been talking about this for months now, so it's the final kind of just abundance of caution to make sure that we basically think we can.
Anybody have any suggestions on you that they would like to come back?
Yeah, I'm not quite sure, why we said no to Colorado Health Networks of Southern Colorado, but that's on what I'm doing right now. I think it's worth a further discussion.
Which one are you looking at, the one or two? That's on the agenda, there's a one or a two.
So it should be,
I think it's listed as B on a C on the agenda, if that's what it's.
Well, there's C, it's one, there's Colorado Health there, one is L.
I'm sorry, one.
One.
That's the one I have, isn't it?
Yeah, and for me, it goes back to, we know overdoses are an issue, and so seems like this could be a program that help try to combat those.
Yeah, I'd be in favor of having them come back. Hey, do we need to vote on having these come back, or do we just give direction to facilitator and put that on the agenda for the future?
No, we're noticed and, council discussion and non-award applicants. I think you could direct them to come back. Sure, good.
Sure, I'm looking at the rate. Colorado Health Network 1,
So it should be in the third sheet in.
this one. Okay, if I'm looking at this one, I'm looking at. Access point harm reduction programs by embedding overdose prevention coordinator harm reduction services in El Paso and other counties. To distribute naloxone and train on testing strip usage. This is the one that you're referring to, just to make sure. So are we giving thumbs up direction kind of deal? Is that?
Essentially, yes, but we did invite them to come to a future meeting.
I'm just gonna. I'm not sure that this one, I think this is a large request. I personally am not sure that. That this one is one that I feel like is super impactful. It's a lot of dollars on quite a few things that I think are already, we already have a ton of naloxone, in the community, and that's being funded, so I'm just not sure that this one is one that I personally feel like is the best use of our dollars all this time, but. So I don't know that I'm in favor of bringing them back, sorry.
I don't disagree with anything you said, with the exception of bringing them back doesn't automatically bind us.
No, that's
with
true.
funding, so that's why I'd be in favor of bringing them back.
I just know our. Frankly, I just know.
Yeah.
We have a lot of time, we have limited amount of times,
Limited time, not a
so
lot.
I would, well. We have a lot of time invested and spent in this funding cycle, and I want to start looking forward to our next ones and planning too, and so just being aware of that, I'm just sharing that I would appreciate us, rather than just bringing, and I'm not saying that's what you're saying, but just let's be really thoughtful about if we're bringing people in, let's be pretty confident that we really are very serious about funding them just for the sake of time was my only. I know that it doesn't bind us. But that was kind of my thought process.
Yeah, that's the spirit in which I took it. What's somebody else about this?
I was just going to say, based on my previous notes, this was a organization that there was not a lot of interest in funding at the time. They talked a lot about safer infection practices and sterile syringe access. And the council was not super interested, so if that helps at all.
It does. Was that under one or two?
It was under one for sure, but they had a lot of the same scope of work information in both of their applications. They did a lot of copy pasting.
Yeah, I remember that now, so.
Now you don't like it.
Yeah, I remember that conversation.
Yeah, I appreciate that, Amanda. Thank you for reminding us. What about, I would actually be interested in bringing Library Hill back. We actually do a lot of work with them here in the DA's office, and I appreciated the work that they do.
This was an app, wasn't it? They
Yeah.
wanted to do an app, and I felt like we Not,
It's essentially, we funded other similar things. I can't remember, do you remember, Amanda, what the other one was? It was like a sort of that remote approach designed towards Tulare County.
Yeah, UCAS is doing some connections to Fairwork with some software. The Light of Hill is the grid app is already up and running. This would be adding an additional module to their grid app that would be specific for its use.
So that's the
Just as
part
a-
that I like.
Just as an administrative piece, in order to get back in touch with these applicants, could we get an official no also on the applicants we are choosing not to fund so that they don't continue to hang in this balance of maybe we're getting funded, maybe we're not?
So this was the last bite for this group after
Yeah.
today, it's official no.
So we
till
need
then.
kind of a yes or no on all of
Exactly,
that.
till then, no.
So if we're not bringing them back, then I think that means a no.
Well, after this, we'll move to the next cycle, so.
Yeah,
we're all
like the red flag.
Great, thank you.
So any other thoughts on Light of Hill?
I just know that, El Paso County Department of Public Health launched an app 2 years ago, or a year ago,
Well, on website, yeah.
and it's not really. We're looking at discontinuing it, because the usage is just not there. So
Well, I think that could be a question that we could ask Light of Hill about. How many people are actually using their app? I know that their GRIP program is actually something that we use here in the DA's office, and I've been pretty happy with it, so.
What's the GRIP program?
I can't remember what it stands for right now off the top of my head, but it's really about resiliency. For us, obviously, we deal with a lot of secondary trauma. We go to crime scenes and we see all the same things that the police department see. And so it's really helping with the resiliency and the ability to deal with that and still be effective in prosecution. So they've been effective for us. That's our experience with them. So I think it'd be good to at least ask them,
Is that?
how our people work? No, we have classes and stuff.
Okay,
I just know the work that they do. That's what I'm saying.
I'll just add, I feel very similarly, things that are really self-service like this concern me because I can see how the certain work is really valuable, especially having those classes and especially those, but having something that's kind of an app. I think what we saw and what we were saying with the data on some of the other things that Lauren mentioned does concern me, and I don't know how we measure it, and also from a perspective of family and friend, like we are funding a lot of things that are much more hands-on in this regard. And I really think that that is a much more effective delivery tool. And I also think that there's tons of resources out there, so it's hard for me to justify $175,000 to create a single module when there's so much out there that is already available and it's not more hands-on. I'm not gonna oppose it if you really want to bring it forward, but it would be a really, and again, just the interest of transparency on the use of our time, it would be a really hard sell for me. It's for those reasons, because I can see how the in-person, if it was an in-person situation. With these like apps and things, like, there's just so much of it out there, and I find that consistently I have seen across organizations that people just don't really go toward it, and then
No, that's-
cost, so.
Yeah, no, I think all of these organizations that are listed here, we all have our information. Obviously, they would be on this list, so it is still an uphill climb for any of them. The only one that I saw on the list that jumped out at me that I would be willing to listen to again was them. So that's why I'm saying.
I wouldn't object to having them come back in, but I kind of share with Carrie, and for me, it's gonna be a high hurdle for me to get there, but I don't mind giving them another bite of the apple to show value, because ultimately that's what this is about. It's value and what value we're gonna bring to these people, and will there be a return on investment equal to a pretty significant investment?
Anybody else have any thoughts?
Ask if anybody objects to bringing it back.
Well, I think we do have something.
Well, I think we said, well, I don't object to bringing them back, I'm just saying it'd be a high hurdle.
Yeah,
The door's open.
Yeah.
And I don't object.
Historically, we've done thumbs up or thumbs down, so, you know, thumbs up to bring them forward to the next meeting or thumbs down. So I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, so a consensus to bring them back and to the, or back to the next meeting, or invite them to come back to it. All right, so with that, we have concluded, the.
Well, are there any others? Obviously, we have two, Mark brought one up, I brought one up. Are there any other that people feel strongly about bringing back and have discussion?
Do we make a motion? Do you want me to make a motion to do the official no as talked about? Then, is there another one to move forward?
Yeah, do we need that, Tim?
Mr. Chair, I actually think with the goal being to notify people or formal votes probably.
Okay, yeah.
So I would move that we. Do you want me to just do notify, or do you want me to just, that we deny? How would you prefer the motion?
If we're going to notify them that it's being denied, probably then we deny.
We just deny it, so,
Notification of denial. Is that what you're saying?
Or I think deny move forward with this particular applicant and then staff can notify.
Okay.
so I would move that we deny the applications of all of the A through M with the exception of D, the Lyda Hill folks who we will invite back.
And, City of Colorado Springs, they're already coming back next month.
Correct, yes, so, and.
Do we have a second of that motion? Second, all right. Any discussion? All right, all in favor? Aye. Any opposed?
So these applicants initially applied in the January of this year, and there's our first time going through this process. And we got through them, there were 35 applicants, which is a lot, and we gave each an opportunity to present, sometimes two. I think people in the community have been thankful to have many opportunities. It's not what other councils do. But I think we can say in full confidence that we gave everybody a fair shot and multiple shots. And now we'll move to the next funding cycle. So next funding cycle started in the July 31 application deadline. Those applicants have been reviewed, scored, they're all in your booklet here. Today, we are going to now start with first 4 up. And these are actually people who are already previously funded, and, you know, falling incumbents. So your guiding document on the front, the cover document, highlights what we're calling the encumbrance on the table of contents. Those are those who were previously awarded. So that's who we're starting with today, because we're really just going to talk about should they get funded again. And they actually had a smaller application process because there was a, you know, there were a lot, we have to start all over previously funded. So the first one up in that cycle is the Colorado Met Project, doing business as Rise Above Colorado. Before I invite them up, any questions? And find it in section 5 of your booklet. Thank you for coming. That's what you're looking for.
Yes.
Yes, can I clarify that? Yes. And you got my slides.
For that.
Hi, everyone. I'm Kent McLennan, Executive Director for Rise Above Colorado. Our formal legal name is Colorado Meth Project. We've been operating as Rise Above Colorado the last decade. We are in this incumbent pool as a key sub-grantee of the CSU Prevention Research Center grant for youth prevention that we partnered on for much of this work that we laid the groundwork for. That today's conversation is really about extending some of that those efforts. And so wanted to just come back to a couple of things. These are some of your slides, right, in terms of the objectives and the budget. But there was a slide in there that I added, a couple of slides. I don't know whether those are in. Okay, there was a top slide that I'm not seeing, but we can talk to it. So really 3 core pieces that we're talking about today in this application. The first being the continuation of the Connect Effect campaign that has been localized. We spent, you all invested a lot of time and money in helping us with the shaping and the launch of that campaign with a lot of youth input from local El Paso and Teller County youth and got that into the field in June. That's continuing to run through the end of the year and can certainly talk to some of the highlights of that in terms of the quantity of impressions and engagements that we've had through that campaign. So part of this grant is the continuation of that. While we don't need a whole lot of expenses related to the maintenance of that campaign, there's going to be a little bit of creative refresh so that the ads don't become fatiguing. I had a couple of samples of Snapchat, Instagram ads here in those slides, just as a reminder. Fentanyl awareness building here and using a social norms approach, using local El Paso and Teller County data that tells the majority of youth that are supporting some of these activities, that they would support each other to stop others from, stop a friend from using pills. And so elevating those data points, and also elevating some of the concerning pieces and the risks that come with fentanyl and helping them understand that and building that awareness. So that's part of the campaign here. So that's part one. Part two is extending the work that we were doing as part of this original youth prevention grant around the building prevention resources in the community and interacting and collaborating with local organizations here. Our proposal is to continue the efforts that have been and the groundwork that's been laid with some of those organizations. I named specifically 4 of them as ones that we have established partnerships and really want to continue working with around youth prevention. One of which, one is Inside Out Youth Services, works with the LGBTQ population. Actually, my colleague's going to be presenting there with their youth and team tonight. So that's ongoing. Pikes Peak Region Boys and Girls Clubs is another Teller County Mental Health Alliance, and then also through the El Paso Public Health Department's Communities That Care Coalition, the Fountain Fort Carson Communities That Care Coalition, and the youth that are working with them. So those are 4 specific ones that we're naming to be able to extend outreach with some of our staff time and partnership to do some direct facilitation of resources. That we have a resource called Not Prescribed that's focused around prescription drugs and opioids, and then also a fentanyl module that goes with it so that we build up greater awareness and we build up greater perception of risk for youth around misusing those substances and experimenting. And that we learned that from our sort of pre-post surveys that we do with that particular lesson. So that's kind of part 2. Part 3 is related to data. We've spoken to you previously about the data that we collected through our statewide Rise Above Colorado Youth Survey. And the intent here, that survey is going to go in the field in 2026 in the spring. And this is an opportunity through this funding to be able to oversample both El Paso and Teller counties enough to be able to do some statistical analysis with each of those communities. And so allocating dollars to be able to collect that research. Again, this is done as very differently than the Healthy Kids Colorado survey. This is done through online panels and also through social media recruitment. That's how we do this survey across the state, so that we're reaching youth, not necessarily through schools or just through public schools. And so 12 to 17-year-olds, again, hopefully this is something that can add to your larger body of data for how you're doing the work and the things that you're wanting to support, and really being, for all of us, to be able to have a snapshot of what's happening with trends with youth and in these 2 counties. So those, as a snapshot, I'll stop there and offer questions. Yes.
I didn't catch all of the organizations that you're going to do these workshops at. Inside Out Youth Services, Boys and Girls Club, Fountain Community That Cares, and what was the 4th?
The 4th one was Teller County Mental Health Alliance.
And then on this survey, you said it's online. How are the kids getting access? And I have a follow-up question.
Yeah, so we have a third-party survey researcher that does this, that will then we recruit through social media ads. So it's advertising. They have an opportunity to participate. It's all anonymous. They can receive gift cards to incentivize their participation in the survey, and with a broad sort of section of questions around substance use, mental health, and things that again give us data to be able to then use back in this campaign. So one of the other benefits of this too is when we think about it's a bit of an opportunity to measure around where we've been so far compared to 2024. When we last collected data in the 2 counties, and are we seeing any trend changes around some of these key issues? Fentanyl awareness, even awareness of the campaign, we can ask in this, and we will ask in this in this questionnaire.
So some of this funding is going towards, like I'm imagining someone's watching YouTube, it pops up with an ad, but it's, hey, take this survey, click here. So it's paying for that ad on that social media site.
That is baked into the researcher's overall cost for, delivering the survey and collecting those samples. Yeah,
Can we see an example of the questions, or not just an example? I want to see all the questions.
absolutely. Yes, and I don't know if we provided that with our application as an attachment for the, I am happy to share the full questionnaire of what the survey is.
Okay. Yeah, I
Yeah.
actually want to see, what questions are being asked of minors and
Yeah.
that these dollars are helping pay for.
Yeah.
Just given the history of our Healthy Kids survey and
Sure.
the types of questions they asked.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely happy to share that. Yeah, and those questions, and we are still I will say we're developing the questionnaire for the 2026 survey, so it is not locked and set in stone in terms of exactly what questions will be asked. The last time we went through, we did a much more detailed dive on vaping that we probably won't do this time. So there is some flexibility in those spaces. Yeah.
Other questions? 2 points of clarity. The goal today is to advance for further discussion. We're not gonna take a full vote today. And then I think for Connect Effect and other marketing RFPs funded, I think in the past, we've talked about maybe a subcommittee that could monitor the messages coming out of this, that this group funds, and the value of that to make sure that the funding it will increase the message. And I do think the RFP for the cannabis marketing would appreciate that as well, some kind of guidance on what works and doesn't work as it comes from this group.
Yeah, and we're happy to participate in all of those pieces for sure. Yeah, the campaign in short is continuing to perform above sort of industry benchmarks in terms of the receptivity in both counties. So we're seeing good results here. And I will also note, I think I noted in the application, there are 3 different levels of budget. I gave you in our request the largest line item in terms of the media plan. Our media buyer provided a couple of different recommendations, one which was in line with the amount that we spent on media for this particular 2025. It's a shorter time frame. The one we're talking about in this one is 9 months, 2026. This one was more like, was a shorter, more condensed time frame. So that was roughly 52,000 in paid media this year, divided between El Paso and Keller. Yeah, so you've got that's here. There are lower tier options if we want to look at managing that budget in terms of the amount that we allocate. Obviously, it gets us less penetration and saturation, but we want to be responsive there too.
What did we previously fund? What do you remember the dollar amount we previously? I wasn't.
For media, yeah, 50.
For your previous request.
Yes, we were a sub-grantee of a larger piece, because it was part of the larger CSU grant, so we can probably extract out, our part of the contract, which also included SC2, who was the firm that did the localization of the ad content, so there was a lot more advertising development that wasn't us, that was sort of another sub-grantee, but I'm happy to provide.
So just to provide a little clarity and mention this at the beginning, it came up that, so they were one previously applied, but they decided this time around they would separate their ask. So even though they were previously funded as a group, they decided to go their separate ways and then come back to the council. So the full amount was one ask, but his is a separate portion of that. And I think the other group's gonna come back and present as well.
You know why they were separated?
I think we made that decision based on the original youth prevention ask was so expansive in terms of really creating a strategic plan on some of those documents that we're providing for you as this grant comes to an end in December. We felt like now we're sort of in an implementation mode in more ways. So CSU, I know, has a specific ask around implementation with evidence-based programs. We're kind of continuing down this path of leading the Connect Effect, the survey, data collection, and then some of this direct youth outreach. So it felt, I think, easier for you all to understand perhaps with the work that's being done separately, even though we love collaborating with them and continue to see them as partners.
Other questions?
I'd like to see these guys move forward.
Discussion.
Yeah, but it's not a vote thing. I think this is just where we thumbs up or thumbs down as to whether it's on.
So give an informal thumbs up or thumbs down. And I
So-
got,
Sorry, just for my clarity and process, then they come back later and we decide whether to allocate the full dollar amount or change it.
correct, and, you had asked one thing already, which was, a survey question. We have an opportunity to ask for more things for them to come back with now or later, or from offline.
Well, if they can get a breakout of what did we grant you last time? So we could see, how
Yeah.
much of an increase it is or decrease, or what is it,
Absolutely.
So we just wanted to compare apples to apples.
Fair enough. Yeah, can do.
It was one of the large things,
Yeah, it was 900,000, I think.
but I'm not sure that I can't find it.
CSU's total was 637,922, but it was 58,830 that went to Rise Above. They were a sub-awardee of the CSU contract.
Which did not, and that amount did not include the media piece of that. That was sort of in SE2s. I think we combined them together just in our
Oh,
administration.
gotcha. Okay, so SE2 was 152,213. So if you put those two together, it's just over $200,000.
That's probably more accurate. Thank you for that.
Yep.
Yeah, so I'm also in favor of moving this forward. I really appreciate the questions we all know we're really sensitive about the messaging to our teens. But one of the things that we continue to talk about here, and so I think this will be no different when we move forward and hear from these folks, is getting to a strategic way that we want to look at these dollars and how, what our plan is moving forward. Because again, how do we define success in this group? Are we just going to throw money and hope that things are working? Are we going to try and have measurements? Are we gonna try, what are those things? We also have quite a bit of prevention going on that is marketing related, which I think is good, but I think we might want to see a holistic, what are we funding going into digital marketing at this point? And do we need to fund all these separate things, or should we be looking at consolidating? So I just think that those are some of the more strategic questions that we should be asking ourselves, which is not about the merit of individual programs, but what we are trying to accomplish.
Yeah, and that's information, James, you could come back with also next time is, we have our THC media program that's launching. What all are we doing in this media space?
And we can bring it to the full meeting if that's the group, but I feel like, correct me if I'm wrong, some of those campaign things are longer discussions around the value of the spend, so I don't think it suits itself for a full discussion here unless we stop to vote that.
Well, I like the idea of preparing some sort of here's the campaign we have running, it's running from this period of time to this period of time. And here's this campaign that we are funding and it's running from this period of time to this period of time, so that we can see what on a calendar spectrum and what each buy is. So we have a full picture of all digital marketing going on in that space.
I think yours that approach too, because we're better off if we're not doing it at the same time and driving the price up, honestly, of the same audience.
Let's bring that back to the next meeting, kind of a dashboard of it, and the content's a different issue, but I think we can address that decent spend is a start.
Yeah, I mean, the only measurement we have is the fact that we had suicide rates down considerably. Yay.
Overdose. Overdose
Yeah.
are down.
So it is 1 year. That's not necessarily a trend. And so I mean, that's one area we can absolutely measure, but I think you're right. I think we might want to try to figure out, and I don't even know if we can, what do we measure? I think that we always want to look at outcomes. So.
And then not specific to this, but kind of coming back to her point of, as a group, needing to have, maybe taking a minute to pause, because now that we're starting this new cycle of applicants, what is the amount of money available for this new cycle of applicants? And how long is this time period? We just finished reviewing people that applied January, so. I just need some parameters, like how much money can I approve now? How much do I need to be saving for the future? And I don't feel like I have a handle on that. And I don't know if it's just, I missed that conversation or we actually need to pause and have that conversation.
Yeah, Laura, I think it goes back to Commissioner Geiger's comment, about, the overall strategic plan, which we're light on.
So can we like put that on our next agenda to have that conversation?
Well, and also I think it's a relative, because we didn't spend the prevention money, right? We're robbing that bucket to go to other places, basically, and so we may need to evaluate that, but that's also.
I just want to say for the record that it's only Councilmember Lineweber who's robbing anything.
Well, okay, we'll go with that, reallocate. But the truth is that we underspent what we wanted to spend for youth. And so obviously, when a youth thing comes forward, we're gonna need to probably prioritize that, because we know this year we didn't prioritize. I mean, we didn't have the opportunity, right?
We didn't find what we were looking for.
At the
Exactly.
risk of belaboring this, because I know we have other folks that need to
Yeah.
present here, I think all of this is continuing to come up as an organization, and especially, it's really hard to build something and fly it at the same time, and that's kind of what we've been doing as a new body here. And so even the planning that we did previous, and I don't think it was probably sufficient in my opinion, from the beginning, we have a lot of people who were not here during that, who don't even understand what that planning was. And so I really do think that it is critical for us to go back and take what we've learned, go back, come up with a strategic approach, and to take that pause. So I fully agree with that. I think that's a pretty big thing to tackle. And so maybe, yes, we need to have an entire conversation about that in the next meeting. I guess I think we know that we will, be looking for a new facilitator. Their facilitator is not going to reapply. So we have some changes that are coming our way that are going to mean we're gonna be doing things differently, and I think we probably have to kind of really look at that as a next year task. How we come back and do that, and I think it's going to be bigger than a single meeting. I think in a single meeting, we might be able to say, here's how we want to move forward on creating that strategy, but just, I think it's a really big thing to tackle, and we spent probably an entire year tackling that initially, of meetings, so, I agree, but I really think we have to be realistic about what that's gonna look like.
So, just for clarity, prior to my arrival as a facilitator 2 years ago, there was a facilitator who had a 2-year term that went through a long strategic planning with this group. And then there was discussion of strategic planning fatigue, and they wanted to get to the voting. So now you're in the voting section, but again, now you need to reassess the strategic plan. So what I can do for the next meeting is work with Amanda on the finance side. I can kind of refresh what the initial thoughts were with the strategic plan, and then kind of, highlight where things are going. But as you said, by January, I'll volunteer in January, but I'll step down and have the next person. It will. So won't solve the issue, but at least say where you're going and kind of what that means in terms of what you thought you would be funding, what you did fund, and where you are, kind of a state of the state. And with that is a dashboard. So we do have a dashboard of the groups you funded thus far. I think your idea of the marketing, we can put on top of that as well. So at the next meeting, as part of the strategic plan, can be a look at the dashboard of what you funded so far, and what SOWs, what the original strategic plan is, kind of a state of the state. So, and do that at the next meeting, but that would mean a lot less applicants the next meeting. So it would just mean the applicants that we talked about advancing, maybe a couple of the incumbents, just so they're not having a gap in their funding, and we would pause on the rest of the cycle applicants. But there's only 18 this term, I want to say as well. So last time we had 35 applicants, but we have 18, so we can still get through it and catch up.
I would almost suggest, just for the clarity of, for folks who have applied, I think we finish out this cycle. That would be my suggestion, because I get that there, especially with a lot of people coming on, that we want to do that. But I think if we finish out the funding cycle, that's a good, clean opportunity for us to then pause and not put everyone on hold. And we can even delay that next cycle, because again, we might have gone out in January, but we're gonna have a new facilitator. I don't recommend that we go out for another funding cycle in January with a brand new facilitator. I would think that is the best time to pause, beginning of next year, have those conversations and reset as we move forward.
Yeah, to your point too, we don't have a December meeting either, so it's really, we got November next week to do that. I would rather do that as well. So put off that discussion until the new year and then move forward.
I agree. So, I just want to make sure I understand. So we are now in the July applicants, people who applied in July. We're recommending that we continue through them and then pause on a January applicant. So I can take down from the website. This was going to be discussed later, but this is kind of the process. I think I would like to keep going with the applicants here because they're here, and then I can maybe speak to this next time. And then we can make an official decision in November to pause the January applicants. Because it's been a lot. And maybe the July and January plan is not best. Maybe you want to do it once a year. But at the time, we were trying to push money out the door. So.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, just to get us back on track too, we've got him saying, okay, we're having total. So I would thought that that's that, we have them come back, I think, is anybody opposed to them coming back for further consideration? Correct. Go ahead.
Not opposed, but I wanted to make sure that Commissioner Nelson's request of the survey contents, be part of what's submitted back to us, for sure. Okay.
Yeah, thank you for the support and the opportunity. Appreciate it.
So next up, we have open arts, open.
Doors. Open doors. Mine too. Mine too. An open minds, yeah. Those two lines.
And we have a representative from that group.
Hey, good afternoon. I'm Stanley Conley. I'm the director at Open Hearts and Open Doors, and passing out the endorsement sheet is Shannon Conley. She's the director of the women's services at Open Hearts and Open Doors. I'm just very grateful. I just want to start out with how much gratitude I've got for being an incumbent here and to having received a grant in the past. And we did put that grant to some very good use. When we came up here the last time, we were just starting our men's home and looking at starting a women's home. And so we have been able to get the women's home up and operating, which is an 8-bed home. We started another home in Cripple Creek with 5 beds. And we have also purchased a duplex in Cripple Creek and converting that into a 6-plex with 2 standalone studio apartments, and then 2 or actually 4 apartments that are 2-bedroom family style apartments. So so we can go through the whole continuum care with the.
I don't think that's the one that we gave you, but that's fine. Oh, there we go.
There.
Okay.
Yeah, so we did increase quite a bit of the capacity with the funding from last year. This year's focus is providing scholarships and other educational opportunities for people. This last year, we were able to send 2 individuals up to the Roden Bridge education class up in yeah, up north of Denver. They went up there and did a 3-week course up there for Roden Bridge.
We had a woman do a cooking,
Cake
a
decorating,
chef.
chef and cake decorating class out for welcome cakes and so that, that's part of what we're trying to do is try to increase those educational capabilities or abilities for people so that they can see that maybe I can do something with what I've been doing. And so far, our success rate for the sober living homes is still staying around 80%, which is pretty good nationwide and for the state of Colorado, 80% is pretty good. Trying to make volunteerism and civic engagement a priority, as well as supervised court-ordered child visitation, which has recently came into place. So we are approved and authorized to do child visitations. And then, of course, with that comes the restoration of safe family relationships, and that whether that involves children. And we like to use a holistic approach to the whole body healing rather than just stay sober. There's a lot of things that are involved with all of that. Everything from needing dentures to vision eyeglasses to medical appointments to
given a primary care position for anything else, but, so there's a lot to that. And then
Driver's license.
driver's licenses and ID cards and social security cards, all of those kind of things. And we do have a goal of having 90% of all participants find some kind of gainful employment, which, we're close to that now, but we still. Slide. Any questions on, I know we had some questions on the budget.
I have a question on something you just,
Okay.
your goal is 90% of gainful employment, so where are you at?
Right now, we're at, our numbers are a little skewed. We've got, two guys that are retired, so it's kicking it down to about 78%. So we're trying to really work on getting that back up to the 90%.
So, that by the time they leave, they are
Fully employed, or they're on social security and we have that established.
That's, that's a pretty fast moving thing. I like to have that happen within the first 30 days to have some kind of a job. Even if that's a stepping stone job. The highlighted section down there, an average cost of $5,540 per participant. Your dollars could help at least 34 individuals with the total investment of our total ask of $180,360. This program demonstrates a strong return on investment through the restored lives and reduced community costs associated with it. Stand up here and read something against yourself, but.
He's nervous.
Yeah, I don't, sat back there long enough to get myself really worked.
Eric's intimidating.
I know.
That's why I'm sitting here as a buffer for you.
Anything else you want to?
Questions?
Yeah,
Yeah.
that'd be easier.
How about the last time?
Go ahead, Aaron.
Not a specific question, but, Teller County's not huge, as you guys know. But that also means that when things aren't going well, you hear about it. And actually, I wish, the sheriff's department was here today, they're not, but, my opinion, this is what's excessive to, in Teller County. This is the only, sober living residents and residences now, with getting additional ones. Only ones in the county. It is in the southern part of the county, which I think is the highest need area of the county, for this. And, if you look in here on their, who's, quote, endorsing them per se, these are the people that help provide services, Aspen Mind Center and others that are helping to provide some of these social services together as a team. I know you guys work closely with them and others, in community of caring, but, so my, overall though is for us, it's working. And maybe Kim, actually, you can probably speak to it. Kim.
Well, I would say I'm the director of DHS in Teller County, and the supervised visitation is a huge piece. Because it is an isolated place, and I mean, we only have so many staff, and so it is a huge support, and I've heard great things from our staff. That have clients have been there, so it's been a great resource. Southern part of Teller County is kind of isolated and hard to get to, so it's a big resource.
So we're very excited. We have a whole separate unit on the women's home that gives privacy for these supervised visits that connects right to a park. So it's been really great to be able to help people have those visits. So, yeah. Anything else?
I really appreciate the success and the metrics. I think, and to start off with, I'm very supportive of moving you guys forward for more discussions. But some of the things that I would love to see, is maybe some more, clarity around the timeframes on some of this. So your objectives are really fantastic, but, you're telling us kind of now, but to report very clearly on what is that, when you say 90% employment, it's like before they leave, or maybe we try and do it in 30 days, like we could, maybe there's a 30-day metric and then there's another, like, to really give us those timeframes so that at a glance, we really can see what those are. I'd love to get to the point that this council can have all, you know, all peer, all super living homes or all whatever and say across everybody that we're funding, here's what our percentages are and break that out so that we can really have a good picture of what's going on. So I think that would be helpful. But also, how many total, folks have you served in the last year?
58 men and women.
Okay, great. And then, what was your previous funding amount?
I'm 68, I'm 69.
Okay, and so that's super helpful. And then my last question is, under the main objective, it says lower unhoused population and recidivism in Teller County. Obviously, you're a part of that, but there's probably a lot of factors, but, how are you going to define that for us? Like when you come back from this last time, like how are you gonna report in on that? What available data are you gonna use to report on that?
Well, we can always tell, we know if they came in a unhoused situation, so we already know that. So if we, by the time they transition in our start at a sober living, that's $560 a month. And then we have 2 other homes where they graduate up to like 700 or something in that neighborhood and then on. And so we're gonna keep track of which stage they're at, if they're in transition in one of our homes, or if they have gotten their own housing at the regular rate.
Okay, I see. Okay, great.
One of the great things about the smaller community is you can stay friends with everybody even after they leave.
We know.
So, you can, you know.
What's the average amount of time someone needs spending with you? So when you say it's $5,000 per participant, not how much? Okay.
Any final questions? So we have
I'd be in favor of them moving forward.
we get an informal vote, thumbs up, thumbs down.
I know I'm gonna throw a wrench in the system, but I have a question. We have, in my opinion, and I know some may disagree, but we have not been consistent necessarily on how we're moving people with thumbs up and thumbs down. There was a point in time where we talked about when there were unanimous thumbs up to move those folks kind of the top of the pile, because those are the easy ones to fund. When we are all in agreement, it shows a really strong application, and that makes it easier to go back. We have a smaller amount of money in the bucket to fund. And so I would just love to request, if this is a unanimous one, like, can we keep track of this was a unanimous versus what the thumbs up is, so that that helps us jog our memories and make it back to these, makes it easier to make decisions.
Thank you, that's great. The last 2 for the new cycle were unanimous thumbs up. It was those applications by the Hill specifically, and last year's there was a consensus. I'll live with that in a minute.
That's helpful, I think. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Two more to go, and then we can do this in 2 minutes. So we have next up. Status code 4. So it's status code 4 representative. As a reminder, this is not a presentation of what directly application the company led materials. So really this is the Q&A, but we get both of mine and that was your first time.
So that's why that's not.
Like really.
No, let's go to this one. Are you on one?
No, can't play.
Oh, we can't play? Okay. All right. So, good afternoon, everyone. I'm Ann Rush with Status Code 4. My husband and I have a nonprofit that does free mental health for first responders and family members. We also do a lot of education and we develop informative resources. So during phase 1, we received fundings to develop a film called Opioid Substance Use Disorder, where we interviewed individuals from both Teller County and El Paso County from the public safety arena and also UC Health personnel. And we had a nurse, who is now a nurse practitioner, who had the courage to come forward and share. And so she described how she had a back injury and she started using opioids, and then she started dipping into medication, was found in the hospital, and was able to share the whole story. And through all of that, we were able to talk about something that's not talked about in the public safety arena or the medical practitioner field, which is the comorbidity between PTSD and chronic pain.
And what happens is oftentimes you get individuals that are dealing with PTSD, they're not seeking help, and then they get an occupational stress injury on the job because they're very taxing career fields. And they start taking prescription medication. And that numbs the pain, but it also numbs the traumatic feelings that they have there. And that's how they get in to that spiral of experiencing post-traumatic stress. So the next slide, yeah, you can't go ahead and go to the next slide. So what we did when we talked about our classes, let me go back one step. So the phase 1 effort was the Lifelines documentary film on the opioid substance use disorder. We also developed a Moodle module, which is a component of that GRIT model that you were talking about from Lyda Hill Institute, that provided online training. And then we had an in-person class that went into more depth on the attitudes around post-traumatic stress, and to really talk about the comorbidity between PTSD and chronic pain and how do you overcome that. And then the other element to that class was we created this stress pain continuum model, which we call the SPOC model. And this originated out of from the US Marine Corps. It was a stress continuum model, and we kind of adopted it with opioid use and pain, and then we applied the coping skills from that. And the members of the class that went through that thought that that was an excellent tool to really help them understand the relationship between stress, pain, opioid use, and then also what are some of the resiliency skills or coping skills that could be applied at any one of those levels. So if you look at the green, that's your least amount of stress, that's your optimum amount of stress that you want to be at. And then as it moves to the red, that's your extreme cases where you're diagnosed with the PTSD. You may have an opioid use, substance use disorder, and then needing more help, such as seeking psychotherapy, and then also perhaps rehab center if you're unable to stop these drugs there. So all of that was applied to the statement of work number 2 with awareness and information there. So what we'd like to do with phase 2 is kind of take that same course, teach it many times, 4 times into larger organizations and larger audience platforms. We want to also create a train the trainer course that we can invite all the instructors from different public safety departments and healthcare facilities to come in and learn this curriculum so they can then take it and apply it in their organizations. Because we know that R1, we want to make this so that it's not cost prohibitive. And that's part of the sustainability piece there. So what the instructors would get would literally be a course in the box that they could then take and apply there. And then the last piece to that is developing advanced training for the peer support groups. So our organization already has a peer support team with UPass, it's UPass Regional Peer Support Program. And then we also have now a Southern El Paso County, as you would call it, that has many of the fire departments, to include Fort Carson's Evans Hospital staff as well. And we want to sit down with those peer supporters and get them to understand how to have that dialogue with someone who could be experiencing chronic pain, perhaps uncontrollable use of prescription medication, and walk them through that SPOC model there so they truly understand how they can be sitting down with someone and doing that on a very personal level there. So, and then the last thing that we want to do is offer this up to both, and of course this would be going on across the Pikes Peak region for both Teller County and El Paso County, is to have a panel with some of the representatives from the film, show our film, have experts also there, and have it to a much larger crowd, 100+ individuals, where we can really have that dialogue, talk about the situation here and what to do about the health. Because there's a lot of great efforts happening with residence facilities, but I can tell you our model of going out there, showing signs and symptoms, and everybody becoming more self-aware across our 200+ classes has led to us having over 10,000 sessions occur in just our small organization of council. And so we know that if people are aware that this could potentially be, the catalyst that gets them down that spiral of opioid misuse, then hopefully we can get upstream of that so they can take advantage of that. And then the other thing too is, since we're talking about occupational stress injury and post-traumatic stress, what are elements and what are things that the organizations can do from perhaps SOP matters or whatever that can help their guys be more resilient?
So now open it up for questions.
Yes.
So from the first round of funding, what were your accomplishments and your outcomes from that?
So we developed a film, it's a 10-minute film. It's available online. It's got Spanish subtitles, English subtitles. It's been seen about 100 times because we really haven't had the opportunity to go out and present it more in there. We developed the Moodle module, which is the online training platform. That's available right now on demand. Anybody can see that. You guys should have received the links for both of the film and the online Moodle module to that. Then we've got the in-person curriculum completely done. We did the pilot study for that, pilot training session for that, along with we toured the curriculum, so we're ready to go to show right now. And that included both the pre-testing and post-testing of that. So we have all of that material ready to go to. So. Have you guys been able to see the film by chance?
I haven't yet. If you could re-provide the link.
I'll send the link out.
Okay. And I'll share that link with you, because what I did was, we had also had just a short 1-minute clip too, that I was hoping we could show in here so you guys could see fruits of the funding from it up there.
Isn't that tiny?
That is tiny, yes. And he was a huge help for that. And I would also say that we did a lot of research for that. So we did a training needs assessment to make sure that what we were bringing was actually relevant to the guys we were teaching there. So we did a lot of research, and that's how we were able to find severity between PTSD and chronic pain. In fact, one of the research studies we did evaluated 129 veterans. And of the 129 veterans, 85% of them were also that were diagnosed with PTSD, also experiencing chronic pain. We can attest in our clinic there that it is, when the clients are talking about this and we bring up about pain, about 80% of them say, yeah, I'm experiencing pain. And it's not uncommon because when you're stressed and tense and you're in this constant state of hypervigilance, your body can break very easily, especially with the lack of sleep or the disrupted sleep patterns. All of that plays into making yourself more vulnerable, more susceptible to dealing with these kind of things. And I'm worried that our forces aren't aware and how this can really be an issue. They probably aware of the pain, they're probably aware of PTSD, but they don't realize how they go hand in hand. And until you deal with the trauma, your pain is not going to subside. And so that's the real big thing, is getting them to seek the help, the appropriate help for the condition.
I'd just like to say that I haven't seen this video, but for this film, but I've seen many of the others that you all put out. And the fire department has a very robust peer support program, staff psychologists, and we use status for their films. And we send some of our firefighters to them because it's not a one size fits all for everybody, even though we provide trauma focused treatment for our folks. Like I can't say enough good things, but I'm very much in support.
Any questions or decisions?
I really appreciate that feedback. It's really valuable, but since everything is ready to go, I wonder if we couldn't have maybe some of the first responders in this group preview what it is that we would be funding, really pushing out, not just the video, but additional the curriculum. If there's anyone that would be willing to do that and then come back and give feedback to us. Jake's not here, so I'm looking at you.
I am going to be abstaining.
I have, they're a friend of Mountain Police Department, so I can provide some insight. Some of our officers have actually been in one of their films. So I can provide some insight next week.
I mean, I don't mind if you guys provide the personnel, I'd be happy to present the film and the training to them as a step going forward. Because I want this to be something valuable to folks, and I understand limited resources. We want to make sure that it's relevant.
So I'll work offline to make sure that, and Christian gets it, a copy of that. I'll make sure it's on.
And can you also just, in case he's available, Jake Marcus?
Yeah, that's all. And he also is going to present.
Just for the minutes, Chief, this Johnny, not.
Thanks, Michael.
Yeah. The one that I stars and I said I heard we were blinded. Yeah.
With that, do we have a thumbs up for this group or thumbs down? Have a thumbs up? Is it a unanimous thumbs up? All thumbs up.
I'm abstaining.
And I want to abstain, so okay, we'll make that another thing.
And I guess my question is, so does this mean that I would be providing the class first and then?
I'll work offline with you, but you'll give materials to me and try to get you in touch with both, just minutes before that.
All right.
We'll talk about that. Right,
Sounds good. Thank you so much.
Okay. Our final group today is a suicide prevention partnership. So. We are 11 minutes, back in the hills. But the plan was, I emailed everybody that they had 5 minutes to present and, move to the rest of your day, so you'll have to live up to that for the rest of the.
Yeah, I have to live up to it. You're asking like pastor to keep his message.
Yeah, you're asking Pastor to do that. My name is David Galvan. I'm actually the Vice President, soon to be Board President of Suicide Prevention Partnership. I play a role as a mental advocate suicide prevention trainer, both in churches, businesses, and schools. So I go around doing this often. And the work that we're doing with Suicide Prevention Partnership for what you all are doing today, in front of what I've been calling as I've been sitting back there, as the voice and the Shark Tank at the same time. And so thank you all for being a part of that. I would wish your chairs were turned around. It'd be more helpful. But what we're doing at Suicide Prevention Partnership, I gotta pass these around is what I was asked. Cass Walton is unavailable today, so in her absence, I'm here with you all. And so you got my part in these last few moments that I have with you. I think based on what I was reading in the email that went out, we were missing some pieces. And so this is just some of that review. Yeah, you're very welcome. That's a blank sheet inside there. I apologize. You can read those numbers if you want. What we're asking for really is supplement for an FTE individual that works with a family youth resource individuals. Those that are needing services and navigating this. This used to be a funded situation with us and the El Paso County Health Department. And this was an FTE that was funded through some of their grant funding that they had. And then also the rest of the information down there are all the additional types of supplies and all the other expenses that come along with some of those. This is primarily for our team board education for those that are being navigating that. If you'll hit that next slide real quick. The teen advocacy that we see with this is the education and outreach. I work closely with the team board. David mentioned you're giving a pass to this. My previous history as a youth pastor, so I hung out with students all day long. And so I love it. I was with 8th graders and 7th graders today, working with them around digital safety and citizenship. But we can increase this process from 54 schools to 64 schools and be able to continue the program and work that we do with in conjunction with NAMI and Diversus Health with a program called What's on Your Mind. So our students on our teen advocacy board actually go into high school classrooms and middle school classrooms here to talk about some of their experiences as they've been equipped with that. We'd like to do a peer-to-peer social media campaign. You see those numbers inside there. And then ultimately our community outreach that we've been doing with Men of Influence on a regular basis. These are 12 times a year, once a night. And then we're also doing work to provide more teen engagement with our board. And so for those types of services, we're looking like to help along with that with our FTE that we've been asked, 200 unique service related individuals to help families get connected to services here through that process. And so we want to make sure that's going on. I know I have a short amount of time, just trying to do that. I think the last slide here just goes back over the budget piece of this for our teen advocacy board, what we're asking, and all those funds should add up to that $100,000 request that we've been asking for along the way. And so these are outreach oriented, broken down into these categories is what our executive did. So I just want to give that recap really quick as we go, sir.
Yeah, I know we have limited time, so I'll be quick. So obviously, love what you're doing, critical work. But how much of this, is about opioid prevention versus continuing? One is obviously a fantastic and much needed program, but obviously what we're doing, we're focused on prevention of opioids and drug use. And
Yeah, the work that we're looking
How
for
much
to
would be going towards that?
Yeah, the work we would probably advocate for is the upstream prevention of this. So if we can do this with the work that suicide prevention as well as what's going on in the opioid prevention process, they're very, very conjunction. They work parallel in that process of identifying those upstream prevention models of utilizing coping mechanisms and skills for those individuals. And so we do that a lot. There's some materials even with an organization called Team Mental First Aid that talks about how to help a friend in a crisis situation with an overdose and doing that process. So there is some of that training that goes with that as well.
Other questions?
Can you speak a little bit to what you were doing in the schools?
Yeah, the Teen Advocacy Board goes in with NAMI and Diversus, and they do a What's on Your Mind presentation. It's class oriented, so they go to classrooms and do that process. And so they have a script and everything that they go to talk about how to advocate for help, how to advocate to get to someone if you're in a crisis. Those types of articles are going into it. So like a 55-minute presentation in most classrooms, 90 minutes, they have a lot scheduled.
At the high school level?
At the high school level, primarily, there are some middle schools. That's part of that 54 high school, schools that we're currently in right now, but that's that level there. Great question.
Yeah, what are those tools that you're in, which districts?
I want to say we're almost in every single district here locally. I can't name the schools personally for that, but I could get that list to you all of what those are and then do that process. But I would say everywhere from District 12, 49, we've done work, District 20, District 38. A large portion of our students are in District 38 from our team board as well.
And can you just speak a little more? You mentioned the men of influence. How are they on?
So the impact nights that they do, it's actually in our application. So I was reading through this to identify that. But there's an app, they do an awareness night, an education night. So they assist with that. I want to make sure that I'm stating this correctly. But there's a work that we do with community nights along with them as a resource. I was filtered through real quick. But I can get that back for you. But that's how they're involved on those evening events that we do with our team boards.
Are you aware of the controversy surrounding that organization?
Oh, I'm aware about some of those pieces, not all the pieces. I was reading from the application model that we got. Yeah.
Just a comment, not a question. I have some knowledge of the Pikes suicide prevention, specifically the team board. They're a very active group, professional young people. I may have just brought some here today, but they're very proactive. They've been to schools down in Fountain. So it's, in short comments, I'm for moving this group forward, just for the team board and the work that I know they do. I have experienced that from a police department standpoint.
And this was previously funded, right? What was the amount that was funded and what did you do with that money?
I don't have an answer for that. I can get that for you, though. I appreciate that. And I knew it was gonna come, and I was like texting, I was like, hey, I need to know. And that's
About $54,000. And that was for, a lot of that was for the team board.
And David, is your 70,000 for the salary? Is that salary benefits for your FTE?
yeah, for the FTE.
Okay.
That's an existing FTE?
It's an existing FTE that we just recently let go about 60 days ago. Because
So
of
that's
funding.
previously funded through public health?
Yeah, the Pasco County, yeah.
So we have one, by, Chief, is the only decision to move it forward. Are there other questions or comments or?
I'm going back to what Commissioner Stone said. I just haven't seen in the presentation the connection to the opioid aspect of it. I've seen more suicide prevention aspect, but I just haven't seen that connection yet.
Understood.
Yeah, I agree with several things. I would need to see a lot more information to not come prepared, I'm sorry to say, to tell us how you spent the money that we already gave you is really disappointing.
Yeah.
I'm also going to just be frank and say the connection with men of influence is very concerning to me, since I've literally had people from that organization come and make threats, and a public meeting that I've been a part of. So I would be very uncomfortable with moving this one forward without having any of that information and being really concerned. And then I think going back to those teen messages, it's something I always advocate for. I want to understand what is being said to teens, how it's being advocated, what resources are there being pointed to. So that we can have a better understanding. So at this point, I'm really concerned and hesitant about this application.
I know we're done on time. What is the group that you have concerns with? I'm not familiar.
Men of influence.
Men of influence, okay.
So I took 4 notes, men of influence, understanding of the whole relationship with them, the money from the previous spend, the list of schools that you're in, and the messaging that you provide in those schools.
And the connection to opioid prevention.
Right, connection to the opioid. So those are 5 items that would have to come back and discuss and then they can be sort of advance. So with that, we have a solution plan similar to advancing. So I got not a consensus on still are you abstaining? Oh, sorry. I don't think we have a consensus on the report. Okay, so let me just make sure, no, we're out of time, just give me the yes votes. How many yeses are there to vote for? 4. And, 5. That is not a consensus. So at this point, there's not a consensus to advance the next stage. So with that, we are at the end of our time today. Thank you. We're in the meeting. The next meeting is November 12th, so it's not a month out, it's November 12th. Thanks to the Thanksgiving holiday. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, Sharon. We take books with us.
Yes, please bring it back to the next meeting. Thank you.
Over on how many people that have been back to the.
I can take what we want.
Michael.